All right, welcome everybody to day zero, or I guess day one of Foundations of Programming. Thank you guys for making it today. Um, Foundations of Programming is typically a very small class. I'm actually very surprised that we have less people than I expected. I know we had six people scheduled for Foundations of Programming, which is the average number that we typically get. Um, First and foremost, I thank you guys for making it here today. Foundations of Programming is a optional course. It is a pre-course that typically comes before most of our main cohorts. So anything involving the immersive program or just the full stack in general or DevOps. Uh, Intro to coding, or as I was, I get confused sometimes. Intro Foundations Programming was initially created to help facilitate the learning aspect of coding prior to any of our major cohorts. Um, the reason for that is because when you guys join our programs, there's a very steep learning curve, specifically around the very first assessment that you guys are administered at the start of our course. Um, at least for the immersive program or full stack in general, the very first assessment that we do is object oriented programming, which is a doozy. It's pretty heavy, especially if you just started coding very recently. Um, and we saw a trend of people struggling with it and having to retake the assessment. The Intro to Foundations of Programming is going to help bridge that gap between, for those of you who just started to code a couple months ago, and then to bridge that gap to be able to understand what your code is doing and how to utilize it. Object-oriented programming is the next step that comes after learning something like functions and programming. Um, if you've been around the block a little bit, if you dabble with other languages, or if you check some of these platforms, learning platforms that teach you how to code, they generally start the same. You start out very simple with printing, hello world to a console, right? If you're using Python, you print, use the print statement. If you're using JavaScript, use console.log, um, and so on and so forth, right? Varying between languages, and then increment by different topics where you go into data types, variables. You go into something like data structures, like lists, and then dictionaries, and it typically goes into like conditional statements. Uh, some might have it a little bit different, but generally somewhere around that order, like if-else statements, membership checks, and so on and so forth. Eventually, it leads to more complex subjects like functions, followed by object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming is typically at the end of these courses because it is a very difficult concept to understand. So we saw a lot of people struggling with our first assessment, and foundations of programming helps get us there to ensure that you have a high success rate when you guys start your programs. So, although it is an optional course, we have received amazing feedback from the students who have gone through foundations of programming and moved into our programs, our full-time programs, evening programs, or DevOps. Without a doubt, it never fails. At least one person per cohort will always come back and message me directly and tell me, Roger, thank you for the time that you took teaching us foundations programming. I'm glad I went through the program because I would have been absolutely lost if I didn't go through foundations programming and jump straight into the cohort. Not to say that if you are not currently present here sitting in this class, you will not be successful, but it is a fire hose of information when you guys go through um, the full stack immersive program. Before I continue, real quickly, can you guys let me know what programs are you guys jumping into, so I know who exactly I'm speaking to? Do I have any DevOps in here right now? Okay, no DevOps. I'm assuming you guys, for the most part, are full stack, either evening and weekend or immersive. Is that correct?
Correct. At least for
Okay.
me.
Thomas, Richard. All right, awesome. So immersive full stack, yeah, absolutely. For at least you three specifically, what you have to look forward to is the very fact that the first assessment is typically the object-oriented programming assessment. and it is tough. Without getting too deep into the weeds of the full stack immersive program, uh, your first assessment comes 2 weeks into the program. So you start, I'll tell you right now, the first 2 or 3 days are kind of a wash, because it's like intros. You're you're talking to the staff. You're getting stuff set up. You're doing team building exercises to get to know your classmates. You're doing this stall fest. For those of you who have already done it, that's great. Some people will get there and they haven't gone through the stall fest, um, or might have issues. We start seeing things come up around the first 2 or 3 days. So really, the only time that you have is a week and a half to get ready and go straight into the first assessment. So it's tough, right? It's tough. But all right, before we continue, let's go ahead and go through the introduction. Um, Class will be Monday through Friday from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Classes are optional, right? So really, if you show up today and don't show up again, my feelings won't be hurt. You're not gonna get dropped from the course because this is an optional course. You're not required to be here, even if you already told me you're going to be here and then decide not to. Uh, we are human beings, so I understand we all have families. Uh, a lot of people that come to Platoon are still in the military, so we understand our audience. We know that you guys have other requirements that might take priority over an optional course. But because of that, we also do this in the evenings to help move around these issues that might come. Um, so they are optional. If you decide not to show up again, that's cool. All the lectures will be recorded, and they will be uploaded to YouTube. As long as one person shows up to this course, I will be teaching. If no one shows up, then I will not be teaching this course because I'm not just going to speak to nobody. But as long as someone shows up and is willing to listen, then I will teach this course. I will record. This will be uploaded to YouTube. Typically, these courses, a lot of people want to see this content, but they just don't show up, and it's reflected on the views of the videos the next day. Um, People are watching these recordings the following day, right? So, um, just be aware of that. Make as many classes as you can. It is very easy to fall behind. Um, and then you're like, oh, well, I'll just watch recording the next day, which is cool. Uh, but now you're having to watch a 3 hour recording just to make sure that you understand what's happening within the next 3 hours. So, um, it, it it snowballs very quickly, right? There are no hard deadlines for any of the assignments that we will be doing within this course. Nothing is being actively graded. You're not submitting anything. I'm not reviewing your work and giving you a grade. There's no fail or pass within this pre-course. This is really just a way to enhance your pre-course knowledge prior to the cohort. Um, we will be doing assignments and then we will be going over the assignments in class. Uh, I will be asking for volunteers where you can demonstrate your code and you can tell me, how you solved it, or if none of you solved it, then one of you guys should muster up the courage and decide to volunteer, and then we can work through your code together, right? That's a great way to learn, especially when you first start off. A lot of people are very scared to show their code. They don't want to look dumb. That's what they think in their head, but really, that is the best way to learn. Show me that you are struggling to understand. That way, we can all learn together, and I promise you, you're not the only person. Bring any questions about the pre-work slash programming you might have. I will answer any of your questions. This is a time to answer. If you went through the intro to coding course with me, um, I was a little reluctant to answer some questions that might have been out of scope, because the audience in the intro to coding course typically ranges from different levels. We have some people that might have taken Python course before, and there's some people who don't like using technology, who don't even have an email, right? They recently registered for an email. We have people like that who never had a computer and they went and bought a computer just for this course, thinking that's what they needed, even though they didn't. So because of that, I'm very reluctant to answer questions that might be out of scope. But because Foundations of Programming has a much broader scope, we'll talk about the curriculum in a little bit. I'm more open to answer your questions. Also, even stay behind class. Thomas here, knows me. We've been working since he came through Intro to Coding. I will talk to you over the weekends or after class for about an hour. I've done it. So if you guys have questions, do ask the questions. If it's if I'm in the middle of a subject and I don't want to lose my train of thought, I might tell you, pause on that thought and we'll get to it in our next break or after the class. But I'll definitely get to your questions. If there's any question that I can't answer to you at that moment, I will find the answer for you and then I'll get back to you and we can have a discussion over it. We will ask for feedback during and after this course. Really, I'm gonna ask for feedback after the course. Really just to receive information from you guys. What do you think could have been done better? What did you enjoy from the curriculum? What did you not enjoy? What could have better prepared you for the cohort, and stuff like that. Uh, Once again, the objective for this course is to better prepare our students for our immersive program. That's not to say that if you are in the DevOps or evening weekend and you're watching this from home, that this can't help you. This can absolutely help you better prepare yourself for the incoming cohorts. As the schedule here says, 5:30 to 9. We will take a 10-minute break every hour on the hour. So 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, and then from 8:30 to 9, we'll typically just wrap up, answer questions, or try to finish off whatever lecture we might try to be finishing off. Um, we had Labor Day yesterday, so we obviously didn't have class yesterday. This course typically runs for 4 weeks, right? Monday to Friday. Your class will be an exception. Unfortunately, I have a business trip to Chicago for Platoon. We typically all work remote, but I won't be here to give the class for the final week. So our class will only range for 3 weeks. Um, it is structured. It is structured in a way that you won't really miss anything important. The last week is data structure, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's not a big issue. The main meat and potatoes of the course ends after like week three. Week four is really just kind of, uh, we're pressing on the brakes a little bit, slowing down and shifting gears. So you're gonna get everything you need out of this course within the 3 weeks that we do have this program. But I do want to reiterate that our last class for this course will be September 22nd. So it's a Monday because then I fly out the next day. So that'll be the last class. We won't. It's really we're missing 4 days at the end of the course that we won't have. So just be aware of that. And because of that, I might try to kind of squeeze as much as I can within the limited time that we have. So do bear with me. Because we are a smaller class, this actually really helps because we can, you know, get through stuff quicker. And then if you do have questions, I can answer them. So no big deal. Uh, Quick introduction. I don't think I know one of you guys in here, but I've worked with Alex and I've worked with Thomas before. But I am the pre-course lead instructor, right? So there's two courses that we teach before our main cohorts. That is Intro to Coding live, and then it is the Foundations of Programming live. I'm pretty much in charge of the live portion and the self-paced programs. So if you guys have any questions about any of the stuff, we just recently went live with our recent intro to course self-paced program like a week ago, I think. I'm not quite sure because I've been away from baby leave. Uh, but we have something new out there if you guys want to check it out. But if you guys have any questions, do ask. Um, I've been working with Platoon for about 2 years now. Um, and the entire time I've been in charge of the pre-course stuff, right? I am a United States Army veteran. There's not much on this slide. I don't have pictures, so I do apologize. But I am a United States Army veteran. I served 8 years as a combat engineer. I left 2022, 23. I don't remember. And I am a Platoon graduate, right? I did take part of the full stack immersive program. I graduated from Uniform Platoon. And I've been in the same spot that you guys have been, right? I went through, learning on my own, stumbling upon Platoon, learning about the opportunities, studying up for the assessment. At that time, the assessment was a lot longer. It took me like 3 months to complete the assessment, if I'm being honest with you. I think I was stuck on one question for like 2 weeks. The assessment was 12 questions, and like unlike now that you guys only have three, we had 12, so it took me a lot longer. But I went through the challenges that you guys went through. Um, we realized we didn't need 12 questions to figure out if you knew how to code. Three is perfectly good enough. Because really, what happened was when you guys came through the live technical assessment, if you cheated on your questions, we knew, right? So ain't no reason for 12 questions when you can do it in three. Um, so I went through that process. I went through the full stack immersive program. I graduated successfully. And so I've been in your shoes. Um, and now I'm here teaching you guys. So if you guys have any questions about what you are going to be going through, day in the life in Platoon or stuff like that, ask away. And I'm here to answer your questions. All right. Before we continue, one thing I do want to say, so uh, highly recommend or not recommend. I highly ask you guys to turn on your cameras if you guys can. Really, it makes it easier for me so I can look at you guys as I speak. It makes it easier for me to teach. It's not mandatory. If you're shy, that's fine. But because it's only four of us right now, it's easier for us to communicate. It's a little bit more relaxed. If you came to intro to coding, a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Professional. I'm not saying this isn't professional, but I like to get a little bit more down and dirty with you guys, talk about code, and be straight up with you guys. So if you guys could have your cameras on when you guys can, absolutely. If you guys are eating dinner, you guys got kids coming in, that's fine. You guys can turn it off. I understand. Yeah, I'm not gonna be strict with it, but if you guys are in a position that you guys can turn your cameras on and interact with me, that makes teaching this so much easier. So I will appreciate it. Um, if not, if you don't have the capabilities, that's fine too. But yeah, I just want to give that. How's it going, Alex? Good to see you. But yeah, um, before we continue, let's go ahead and talk about the Slack channel. So everyone should have been added to the Foundations of Programming Slack channel. I'm sure you guys already kind of went through it. I should be sharing my screen. Is that correct? We're all looking at my Slack. All right. Um, so I see Richard. No stress. You're good. No need to leave right now. But I do appreciate. Thank you for the thought. So here's the FOP Slack channel. Not much to really see here. I just really want to reiterate where you can find stuff. So I mentioned it here within the initial message I sent to you guys, but at the very top is where you can find everything that you need. Uh, First and foremost, I have this pinned to the very top. It's gonna be the Zoom link. So this is where you can come, click this link every single day, and you'll join our call. Don't have to scour through messages and so on and so forth. So here's gonna be the Zoom link for our call. If we have any one-on-one sessions, if you guys need some help, and I tell you we have a meeting, let's meet up at noon, Saturday. I'm gonna meet you in this Zoom room. So just hit this link, and that's where I'll probably meet you. Um, but yeah, if for whatever reason the call drops, um, or it closes up for whatever reason, I've had it where something happens with my Zoom and closes up the call. Uh, we'll join right back in here. The other link you'll see here pinned is going to be the GitHub repository. Uh, Real quickly, just who has used GitHub before? I think Thomas, Alex used it a little bit, right, for intro to coding. Richard, have
Yeah.
you used GitHub before?
I've used it a little bit.
Okay, awesome.
Nothing
So
extensive. I've just played around in there.
all right, bet. So we will be using GitHub. We're gonna have part of the curriculum involves GitHub. This is the GitHub repository for foundations of programming. So this is where the curriculum lives on GitHub. We will get to it in a little bit. We'll talk about how to clone this down to your computer and use it in VS Code. I believe Guillermo might have demonstrated this a little bit during his intro calls. Is that correct? Have you guys done any kind of GitHub lecture in your weekly meetups?
So
No, it's
far,
been
not
mostly
to
just
my
Q&A
recollection.
type stuff.
Okay. What have you guys done? I know you guys do weekly meetings. I'm not quite sure exactly what he covers with everybody. Um, Anyone want to give me a quick rundown? What do you guys covered so I know what level you guys are at right now?
Most of it's been kind of Q&A about the industry and just kind of the direction that the courses go. We haven't really gotten into anything super technical yet.
Okay, awesome. That's good. So we'll cover that. This won't be something um that's like, repeated. So that's great. So we'll be talking about GitHub and how we can utilize it on our computer. We'll have a whole GitHub lecture. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be our bookmarks. So the bookmarks here have three important things. Let's talk about the very last one. It's going to be the install fest. So I think that for sure this is one of the things that you guys have covered. If you have not done the install fest, um, then you need to do the install fest. It's not a big deal today, but tomorrow, highly recommend you need to do. You need to have the install fest completed. Not just for foundation programming, but you're gonna require it for your immersive program. Once again, like I mentioned to you guys, the first week is kind of a wash because everyone's doing the install fest. Um, if you can knock that out now, you can just focus on what's important. Some people have to like split off the group and go to a private room with an instructor to kind of get it sorted out. So if you have any issues, it's better for them to come up now, get it out of the way. We can work through them, and then you're good to go. Um, Also, you need it for foundations programming because we're going to be using it. So here's the install fest link if you need it. The next thing here is going to be the Foundations of Programming YouTube playlist. So as I mentioned to you guys, all videos are recorded. They will be uploaded the night of. I will say sometimes they take a little long to download. If I record it nonstop for 3 hours, um, then it will take about 30 to 40 minutes to download. And then when I upload them to YouTube, YouTube takes its sweet time as well to upload it. When it first gets uploaded, it's like in low resolution. So sometimes you can't see what's on my screen. So you might have to wait a little bit before the high def is loaded up. So just be aware that there might be a lag between the time that we're done with class before you get to see the curriculum or the lecture on YouTube. But it should be up by the next morning. So yeah, right now this links you to the previous Foundation of Programming playlist, so just be aware of that. I will change this after today, once we get our first recording, and then I'll change the URL. But if you do want to see previous lectures, you can see it here. I did mention we're not going to do the last 4 days of class, so if when we're done with Foundation of Programming, and you want to check the last 4 days of class, you can absolutely check previous lectures to see the work. And last thing but not least here, that's really important is going to be the schedule. And I don't have it pulled up. The class schedule um, shouldn't be taken exactly literally, but for the most part, it should give you an idea of what we're doing. Um, I said, yesterday we had Labor Day, so it didn't really count. So today, really, we're jumping lesson zero and into lesson one. So these both of these things we're gonna be going over today. We might start lesson one, but I don't think we'll finish it. So it's not exactly at the same pace. So just be aware of that. But for the most part, this is what the curriculum is going to look like. Today is the intro to FOP. We used to do install phase, but we're not doing that today because you guys should have done it. If you didn't, drop a message in the chat. Let me know that you didn't do the install phase. Uh, and then we'll talk about learning to code and good practices. After that, we'll jump into talking about the terminal, Linux commands, how to navigate through your terminal. That can be very important for the immersive program. You're gonna have to get comfortable working with your terminal. Um, Everything that you do will be used with the terminal, and then we'll talk about Git and GitHub, and we'll do some small exercises together to get comfortable with Git and GitHub. Um, the next things really where it gets fun is after we're done with all this. I don't think we'll start talking about it until maybe tomorrow, like late at night or early Thursday. Um, but we'll talk about HTML. Have you guys been working on the pre-work? What does your pre-work consist of right now?
Right now, I think I'm reading a little bit of the Eloquent JavaScript chapters 4, 5, and 6, and I'm doing some coder bite challenges, but that's it
Okay.
for right now.
Does the pre-work not have anything about HTML and CSS?
Um, uh, do I remember? Right now, no. I think that's like week 4 or week
Okay,
5.
okay, yeah.
It's coming
So
up.
we're definitely going to touch up on HTML. We're going to do HTML first, and then we're going to jump into CSS, and then we're going to chain that up with some JavaScript. So by next week, like Tuesday, you should be working and building little small scaled websites that aren't, they're not sexy, but they're doing stuff, right? So we're going to be talking about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and putting this all together and have a small little application working by tomorrow, sorry, next week, Tuesday. So get ready for that. So we're going to talk about HTML. It's going to go quick, right? HTML, CSS are fairly simple to pick up. JavaScript, that's what's going to be important here. So I don't have here. It's a little outdated. I want to give a quick disclaimer. I just had a newborn baby, like 2 weeks ago, so it really messed up my schedule because she wasn't due until like 3 days ago, and she came 2 weeks early. Uh, so I was supposed to get a lot of this stuff sorted out, the schedule, the curriculum. I appreciate the congratulations messages, uh, but unfortunately, because of that, I haven't been able to get to it. So I am working on this every day as we go. The schedule is not updated right now, but I do want to make a quick disclaimer. Here, you see the next week we have a Python crash course. This is not going to happen. The Python crash course will be removed, and there's going to be a JavaScript crash course that's going to come between lesson 3 and lesson 4. So really, I'm going to push adding JS, adding JavaScript to the right, and squeeze in the JavaScript crash course within there. And the reason for that is because in the past, when this program was first created, we taught JavaScript as intro to coding. Most recently, our intro to coding is in Python. So all of you guys are coming in knowing Python and no one's learning JavaScript. So unfortunately, we have to switch the curriculum up for Foundations of Programming, which I haven't gotten to, so I do apologize. But it will be here ready by Monday. I don't think we'll. No, it'll be ready by Friday. I gotta get it ready by Friday. So yeah, so I'll have it here ready by Friday, and we'll jump straight into JavaScript. If you're a little intimidated about it, Python is pretty similar to JavaScript. I'm sure you're reading eloquent JavaScript already, like Alex mentioned. It's pretty similar. Am I wrong?
It is pretty similar, although
Right.
I do prefer Python.
I absolutely, as someone who started with Python first, I absolutely love Python. The Python crash course is or the JavaScript crash course is exactly how it sounds. It's a crash course. So we're going to be taking JavaScript and Python, and I'm gonna show you the differences and similarities, and we're gonna talk about how you do it in JavaScript, and then I'll tell you this is how it's done in Python. This is how it's done in JavaScript. Give it a try. Uh, the reason for that is when you start learning these languages, whether it's JavaScript, whether it's C Sharp, C++, Ruby, the concepts stay the same. The only thing that changes is the syntax, or in layman terms, the grammar of the coding language, right? Can you print something in the console? How do you do in Python? Print. How do you do in JavaScript? Console.log. Same, but different, right? But still same. So the grammar changes, how you write it changes a little bit, but for the most part, the concept itself of displaying something on the console as output is the same across the board, right? There's some data structure. Oh, sorry, as it was. There's some languages that might have some differences, or they're used for different reasons. Some might be a little bit more optimized than others. Some work closer with the hardware and performance than others. Yes. But for the most part, the programming aspect of like the language itself, the concepts stay the same. So we'll be really working side by side with JavaScript, and the experience or the knowledge that you're going to get from JavaScript is going to come from the exercises that we do. Does the new self-paced intro to course contain Python? Absolutely, Richard. It does have Python. Um, it looks something like this. These are the exercises, but you'll have this is the admin page that I created. But it looks something like this. I created this intro to coding course for Platoon. We have a built-in code editor that you can code in, but you'll have exercises from different modules. I'll show you exactly how the course looks like. This is not the course. This is just where all the exercises live. Um, but you have different exercises to practice different things, and so on and so forth. But it's all in Python, so it should be pretty fun. I will show you what the course looks like in our break, because I have to go log in and open up the course itself. If you guys ever use something like Udemy, or bought in a course like that, or like Coursera, that's the kind of course it is. We have video recordings, lectures, um, and exercises. It's still in like a beta, so be aware of that. It's a soft launch, right? We're trying to get it out to the students who are currently already in intro to coding, and then you guys can give us like improvements and whatnot. Um, if you have been around Kobotu for the last couple months and you've taken the intro to coding course, self-paced, you've probably encountered a PDF file with links to exercises in what's it called? What's the name of that website? Replit that didn't work, and or you
Yeah, they
seen the
didn't work.
conversations. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is our fix, right? Um,
perfect.
so that yeah, so we finally got the fix. It took months. It was a work in progress, but we got them out there. So this is that fix here, Richard.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, I did the Python for Everybody course on Coursera. So I've done a Python course before, but then I jumped into a front end programming course on Coursera and I forgot all of it. So I just need a refresher.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely do check the intro to coding course. It starts very easy, but you can jump to the further parts in there. It's all split up. I'll show it to you once we go on break so you can see what it looks like. But all right, so yeah, so we're gonna go into HTML, then we'll go into CSS, right? Then we'll talk about JavaScript. We're gonna get into APIs and how to use them in our web applications. Next, we'll talk about CRUD apps. Uh, then we will have classes and objects, and this will typically take about a week. All this it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's about 7 days of object-oriented programming. Um, although this is like it says eliminate standard pie. This is the exercise name, but it's using object-oriented programming. We'll use object-oriented programming to read and write into Python files as well. So all this is object-oriented programming. So you'll get more than enough practice. Um, and at the end of it, we'll even build a small game. If you guys, have been around the block like I have, you probably played a game like what's it called, Galaga. It's like a Space Invaders game, right? We have a spaceship that moves left and right, and you got aliens coming down shooting at you. We're going to build that using Python, and you'll get to play on your computer. And then if you have children, let them play it too, right? So they'll see what dad was able to come up with. So you'll be able to create that game. We'll use object oriented programming to create that. Um, and if we still have time, the intent is to build a resume portfolio website. Um, this is what it should look like by the end of our foundation programming. This is something new. This you will not find it in the YouTube channel, but the intent is you for you to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build a portfolio website for you that you can use to demonstrate your skills, projects, where you can also display your resume and even have something like your LinkedIn linked to it, as well as your GitHub. So, uh, by the end of the front end part of our course, ideally we should be working on creating you a resume portfolio, which you will be able to host online using GitHub. This is quite literally hosted using GitHub. It's as simple as pressing three different buttons and having it online and people can have this. Now, granted, you won't have a pretty domain like, alexarias.com. It's gonna it'd be a subdomain from GitHub, but it's something that you can have hosted up on GitHub, so you can add to your resume, or when you fill out applications to a job. A lot of the job applications for software developers, in general, they'll typically always ask you, personal website. Um, so it's nice to have it linked so people can see your skills. And the reason for that is because nowadays a lot of these recruiters are getting thousands of applications. Now let's be honest with each other. If there's like five people reviewing resumes, right, and you put your GitHub link on your resume, do you think some dude in the HR is going to go to your GitHub and look at your repositories and like open up a code file and read your code? Do that for hundreds of applicants a day? I don't think so. So how do we get over that hurdle? A portfolio website. So we're gonna be doing that here, right? Granted, it won't look sexy because you won't have much to put on there, but we'll have the basic skeleton written out. So when you're going through Platoon, the immersive program, you can kind of just start adding things to it, and you can kind of see how it comes together before you even start the program. So this is kind of like a stretch goal here that I'm trying to make sure that we get to. If not, then I'll make it like an optional class when I come back that last week from Chicago, and we can talk about this if you would like to. But once again, this is being hosted on GitHub. Like it took 3 clicks to do this, right? So we'll be doing that. Do I have any questions so far about anything that we'll be covering, the schedule, or what to expect from Foundations of Programming? Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's get back to the slideshow. So these are old slides. Most of you guys are coming in doing install phase, so we won't take too much time. Um, Alex will probably work with your stuff in a little bit and check what's up with your install phase. It's not really needed today, like I mentioned. It's really tomorrow where it's gonna be a thing. We're not doing this. All right, cool, awesome. So running JavaScript and Python files and VS Code. So um, I talked with Thomas about this really recently. If you came through Intro to Coding live with me, you should be familiar with GitHub code spaces. Um, and we only work with Python files. It was pretty simple. All you had to do was press the play button at the very top right of your screen, and it ran your code. Uh, but let's see. Let's touch example.py. Now that you're going to be having your code run on your computer instead of code spaces, uh, you might notice that something might be missing. So we're going to be talking about that today, real quickly. So I created a Python file. It's called example.py. I'm going to write print hello FOP. But when I'm trying to run this code, you might notice, and I don't know why it doesn't always happen, but why is it in restricted mode? Right now, you see the play button. But when you open up a JavaScript file, you might not see this here, and you're going to be wondering, why can I not run this? How should I run this file? Well, right now, you guys might feel inclined to press this button. It's going to run your code, and you'll see it here. Well, this is not the way that you should be running your code. Everything that you do from here on should be done within your terminal. If you have a VS Code application opened up, and you don't see your terminal, you can click on terminal and you can press new terminal, or you could do control tilde Tilde is the button to the left side of your one key, and it should open up your terminal they have open. You should see it, right? But this is what it looks like right now. I pressed that play button for my Python file, and I got the output from the file. That's cool. But this is not how you should do it. What you need to do is you need to run it from your terminal. So how do I run a Python file from my terminal? Well, it's as simple as saying Python and then calling the name of your Python file. This Python file is called example.py. And when I press enter, I see here the same output is being displayed in my terminal that was shown earlier when I pressed the play button. So I can run a Python file with the play button in the top right, or I can run it from my terminal by using the command python and example.py. Now, you're about to ask me, someone's probably thinking about it right now. Roger, I typed in Python, but I got an error. It says Python doesn't exist. It asked me, do you mean Python 3? And if it says that, that means it's because your install fast wasn't done exactly correctly and you didn't set up an alias. So by default, originally, when you install Python and you want to run a Python file, you have to say Python 3 and then the name of the file, and it'll work. But during the install fest, we told you guys to create an alias for this. And the reason for that is so it keeps you from having to type that 3 every single time. It's not a make or break thing. It's more of a quality of life. It's just like a split second to add that 3. Uh, but if you don't have the alias, that's fine. It's not a deal breaker. There's nothing wrong with your virtual machine. There's nothing wrong with your installation. It just means that you have to type in manually that 3 every single time that you run a Python file, right? Um, Either that or just take all the 3 if you have the alias, and both should work. Thomas, that is correct. Touch. So I created this Python file. It is important that I end the file with the .py. That's what tells my computer that this is a Python file. But all right, let's go ahead and create a JavaScript file. So I'm going to say touch, and I'm going to call this example.js. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Is this better? Can you guys see this better? All right. The command touch creates a new file. So that's why I'm using this command. Richard, Richard, you are correct. We did that for Thomas as well. That is exactly the fix that you need to do. So Alex, if you have the issue, read Richard's comment. What he said, and for those of you who might be seeing this recording from home, uh, in the install fest, if you have Windows and you try to install the alias into the bash underscore profile command, it doesn't work. You need to add it in the bash RC. For some reason, that one works. Um, but all right, so we went ahead and we have example.js. Let me go ahead and open this up. Where is my, go ahead, touch. No, let's go code example.js. There we go. By using the code command, it should be able to open up the file that you add to it. But here we have the example.js file, right? So as you see here, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say console.log hello FOP. This is JavaScript. Cool. Oh, oh no. What do I do? There we go. I'm ready to run this. I want to see the output of this on my console. But on the top right, I do not see a play button. Um, Sometimes you can also, if you go to like Python files, you can right click it and you can see run Python. So you might feel inclined to do that in JavaScript. You might try to right click the JavaScript file and then run it. And you might be missing the run command. So how do you run this JavaScript file? Well, instead of using the command of Python, you're going to use the command of node, Node, followed by the name of your JavaScript file, example.js. So to run a JavaScript file using your terminal, use the command of node. If you want to run a Python file, you run the command of Python 3 or Python if you have the alias. So get used to running your files using the terminal. You want to get away from the play button. Uh, Moving forward, everything you do should be done with the terminal, right? We'll talk more about that later on and why it's so important. All right, shift gears a little bit. So learning the code, for the most part, you guys should all have a general idea of coding. Just go ahead, just for my own knowledge, I want you to drop in the chat how many months or years you have of coding experience. Just drop it in the chat. I'm assuming Thomas is busy. That's okay. Um, I've been working with Thomas for a while. But I would assume it's somewhere around Alex time frame. But we see here 18 months and 3 months. That's a huge difference, right? So we're all definitely in different levels, and that's okay, right? Some of us have better learning habits. There's people that come through who, they'll left high school and got a GED or been away from school for a while. Some people were doing college while in the military. We have people who are family members to a service member and they're here, right? Because we teach military veterans and their family members. So we have had children, we've had mom and dad, we've had mom and daughter, we've had dad and son, dad and daughter come through. We've had spouses and the husband come through at the same time, or back to back to each other. So we've had different variations. Um, People who've been out of the game for a while, they just haven't been in college. People might struggle with learning, right, or learning skills or techniques. So there's different ways to code. And the two things that I want to talk about learning specifically is going to be space repetition and active recall. Uh, Space repetition is very helpful, I believe, specifically when trying to learn stuff like syntax, terminology, is a great way to learn something. Um, if you really want to learn how to code, you have to code. There's no shortcut to it. There's no like if this but or anything. And you guys know this. I mentioned to Alex, I mentioned it to you, Thomas. I told you guys from the beginning of intro coding, you have to be behind your computer coding, or you're not gonna learn. You can't sit behind a computer and watch people code it, and expect you can pull it off right afterwards. You kind of have to just go through trial and error, make the mistakes, hit an issue, encounter bugs, debug them, ask ChatGPT, go through documentation, go through Stack Overflow, try, fix it, and then finally fix it the next day after you slept, and you're like, oh, it was that easy. It's happened to all of us. You're up to 2 a.m. trying to solve something, you can't get it. You go to bed, you wake up the next day, 10 minutes behind your computer the next day, and you solve it. You're like, what the heck? What was going on? You have to go through that. But there's a way to help with stuff like terminology, especially when learning something like JavaScript, HTML, CSS. You're gonna start hearing terms like tags, closing tag, self closing tags, uh, p tags, h tags, semantic tags. You're gonna start learning about properties, classes, IDs, for all these different things. What do they all mean? What's the context? The meaning behind them? When do I use one or the other? How is it written? If you're brand new to coding, you're still not used to the terminology. object-oriented programming. What is a a dunder method? Uh, what is the difference between an argument and a parameter? These terms might sound very foreign, especially if you didn't pay attention to the terminology and you're just learning the concepts. Uh, Space repetition is really writing down something and then studying it over and over again. Think your flashcards, right? Remember high school, remember middle school, if you went to college, writing stuff in a flashcard. If you use Quizlet, that's gonna be your space repetition. And a good way of doing that is gonna be Anki. Now I don't have Anki. I don't think I have Anki here. I do. Anki is a great application that you can download. If you Google Anki, you should be able to find it on Google. It is open source. There's no membership required. Uh, I have a couple things here. I have a couple decks. They're old decks. But the way it works, it allows you to create a flashcard deck on your computer. Unlike something like Quizlet that hides behind a paywall and the membership, ignore that. Uh, get Anki instead. Anki is free, open source, and what it allows you to do is create decks of flashcards on your computer, right? I can create a deck here, and I can call this Java script terminology, right? And then I can open up this deck and I can add a flashcard to it. And I can have a front, which could be a question, which is like, how do you display output on a console? And it would be something like console.log, hello. All right. And then I can add this deck here. And I can keep doing this and add cards to it. When I'm done adding cards, I can study. Here you see how you display the output on a console. I can kind of study to myself like, oh, it's going to be the console.log command. I can show the answer. There it is. Awesome. And you can rate your cards. Good, easy, hard, again. And this will give it a timer for how often you will see this card. Do you want to see it? If it was, if this was a pretty hard one, it'll make it come up in 6 minutes. If you got it wrong, it should come up again in less than a minute. If you're good on this, let's see it again in about 10 minutes. If it's easy, like I had no issue with that, without a doubt, I knew the answer. It will show up again in 4 days, the next time you study, right? So you can rank your cards here as you're studying, and this here will allow you to learn concepts like this, specifically like syntax, grammar, terminology. 10 minutes a day, guys. 10 minutes a day. Before you start the day, during your morning coffee, right? Before we start class, right? If you're getting ready to sit down, make yourself a cup of coffee so you can make it to the evening. Get this going, right? Uh, 10 minutes per day, at 5:20, study up, 5:30 we start class, and you're good to go. Space repetition is going to allow you to learn some of these terminology, some of these content, especially if it's a lot of information that you're learning. It's going to come in handy specifically with the immersive program. The immersive program is a fire hose of information. A fire hose of information. Every single day, you are learning something new. Thomas, I don't know if you can share decks. I don't think so. Uh, Maybe I've never tried it. It's only free on PC. Uh, I've never tried it on mobile. That is a great question. I've never tried it on mobile. If it's an app on the App Store, it might ask you to pay. You can download it for free on your PC. Uh, I I can see why it would be helpful to have it on your phone. Absolutely. Um, I'm always on my computer. I work from home, so for me, it was never a thought. But that's a great question. I know for sure that you can download this for free on your computer, but definitely give it a try. I personally, I fell off this. I always make decks, I always fall off them. Uh, Hopefully, you're a better person than I am. But here's a tool for you guys, especially when you guys start getting into stuff like React or Django. you're learning these different frameworks, and there's so many different commands and imports that you need that it can come in handy when trying to learn these things, right? So definitely give Anki a try. Um, let's see. Did I skip a slide? I did. Okay. So that was Anki. The other thing I want to talk about is going to be active recall. And here on this slide, you see a rubber duck. Who has heard of the rubber duck method? All right. So the rubber duck method, it's something that's actually very common amongst software developers. And really, it's just having a rubber duck, right? Your squeaky toy, your bath toy, that rubber duck on your desk. And what people do is when they're struggling with a concept or when they hit a wall and they just can't think of a subject, what they'll do is they will talk through the problem. They use that rubber duck to speak to somebody, right? Sometimes it can be hard for us to kind of talk it out loud about what we're doing. It might seem a little silly. So people have found it easier to have it, have a rubber duck in front of you that you can look at and talk to and imagine it's someone. Really, the rubber duck isn't the important part here. It's actively trying to recall the information. How many times have you talk about something, you're trying to explain something. Let's say you're doing something, you're struggling with it, and someone asks you, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm trying to do this, but it's not working because I'm, this, that, and the third." And you're like, "That's what it was. I just remembered." Right? As you start talking about the process, you recall something that you might have forgotten. Right? So active recall is a great way to learn or remember concepts that you might have forgotten as you're studying or working on your assignments. Whether you're working on anything on the immersive program or here, actively talking through the exercises is a great way to learn. Um, Speak to your spouse or talk to a concept. Talk to your duck about a concept, especially when you hit a wall on your code. Like, why is this code not working? I'm like, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? Then talk to your code and talk about why you did what you're doing and what it should be doing as you read your code. Think back to your live technical assessment. Uh, you should have talked through your exercise, right? As your guys were coding, you should have been talking about what you were coding and why you're coding it. That's very common in interviews. Same thing when you're doing active recall. Talk to the dog about what your code is doing and what you wrote and what was your thought process. Typically, what will happen is as you're talking about what your code should be doing, you'll see something that you add in your code. You're like, wait a second, that's not right. It shouldn't have this. Or like, oh, that's what's wrong. I added an apostrophe when it shouldn't have an apostrophe. Or I forgot a colon. As you're actively recalling and reading out loud and speaking to your rubber duck, you'll find these mistakes. So this is a great way when learning how to code to find these issues, especially if you code alone, um, which all of you will be coding alone for now because you're learning on your own. Um, but it's easy to get hyper fixated on parts of your code and miss something. Most mistakes for a new incoming software developer is trying to learn is typically syntax issues. You missed a comma somewhere, right? You missed an apostrophe or an indentation, or it's in the wrong indentation. You're like, what's going on, right? Syntax issues. So actively recalling and reading through your code and speaking to your robot duck, it's gonna help you fix those issues. But all right, let's go ahead and take our first 10-minute break of the night. Time is 6:33 my time. I will see you guys back at 6:43. All right, welcome back. Time is 6:43. Thomas did drop, but that's because I believe he's switching from one device to another since he was out of the house. It's okay. Uh, so I should be sharing my screen. Does everyone see what looks to be intro to coding in Python? Awesome. Okay. So I talked about this briefly earlier, But this is the intro to coding course that we just released recently. It looks something very similar to this. I'm logged in, and this is like the preview. I have not signed up for the course myself because I don't want to make an account and do that. But as you see here, you'll see like content like this. This is like the intro overview, right? And then almost everything is recorded. Ignore my face, please. Not my proudest. I told them to make thumbnails. They have not listened to me. Um, but my face does look a little scary. But the videos are recorded, um, and they're for the most part the longest video is like 15 minutes. Or my average video is like 5 to 10 minutes. But it's, everything here I'm teaching you in real time. And then after each lecture, you have an exercise. This is pretty simple, right? Your first basic write a Python program that prints hello world. So you have the code editor here. That's module one, right? Very simple. Python basics in essential terms. We talk about control flow, so making decisions in Python, data structures, listing dictionaries, finally functions. And I'm currently working on module six. I should be done by this weekend. But module six is bringing it all together. But yeah, you'll see here. Uh, we talk about functions, how to write it. I got a haircut before this video, so I look good here. Um, and then we have like the exercises afterwards, using functions. Um, and then we have like where some mini little projects, but all that is done here within the course itself, and this is free, right? I want to re-emphasize that this is free. So, if you like, I think it was you, Tony, who mentioned that you might want to go over some Python. Definitely check out Python, the Intro to Coding Python course. It is free. It should have been sent in the Intro to Coding Slack channel. I think we sent a link to sign up for it if you want to sign up for it. I'll send it out in a little bit if you can't find it. But yeah, I just wanted to show that for anyone that might be seeing this video from home, we do have the Intro to Coding Python course. This is supposed to replace that broken one with the broken links to Replets. So here, as you see here, there's like 70 exercises, close to 70 um, exercises. Granted, the earlier ones are easier, right? But there's enough to work on as you progress through your time with Python. Um, Their Dungeons and Dragon thing, I thought that was pretty cool. I'm a nerd at heart, so you're doing stuff like reducing the health from an enemy by by the damage. So uh, don't tell my spouse this. Um, but yeah, so Dungeons and Dragon if you like stuff like that. But cool. So let's go ahead and continue on with today's class. We talked about Anki, space repetition, and active recall. And the reason for that is because we want to reset our forgetting curve. Now, what's the forgetting curve, Roger? Well, uh, think about it like this, and I know everyone knows it, but it's pretty much when you learn something, if I tell you something right now, 100% you'll remember it like 2 minutes later. Let me ask you that in 2 days, or in a week, or 2 weeks, right? The more time that passes by, uh, the more likely you are to forget it or parts of it. Sorry, I was choking. So it's important to reset that learning curve by using that repetition, right? So Anki is re-emphasizing that resetting of the forgetting curve, um, specifically when you start off, right? With time, as these things are being engraved into you because you're using it over and over again. I'm sure everyone's heard that you have to hear something like 7 times before you remember it, or something similar along those lines. I've heard that since I was a kid. It's something very similar to that, right? Eventually, you'll remember it, right? If you do it enough, if you print on your console enough, you remember that how to type out a print statement in Python, obviously. And that goes with everything else. So resetting that forgetting curve at the beginning so you can learn these important concepts, because it's important to speak intelligently and understand what your code is doing and why, right? The biggest issue that you guys might have experienced when you were taking your live technical assessment, you were like, Roger, uh, I've learned the code, but I don't know how to use the code to solve a question. When I get asked like, all right, solve this algorithm or this problem, I brain dump all my information. That's because you don't understand the concepts like you think you do. You don't understand why a list is what it is, or why it's used the way that it is used, or when to use it. In comparison to like a dictionary, what is the difference between both of these data structures? Why is one important over the other? When would you use one over the other? What is it at its core? So because you don't understand these concepts, you think you do. You don't know when to use them, right? If I told you, hey, think about it like this: you're trying to track multiple items, right? Like in a list. If you have multiple to track, why would you choose one over the other, whether a list or a dictionary? Um, how do you access items in a list? Oh, well, they're index notation, so from start to finish. Well, how do you access things in the dictionary? Well, key value pairs. So you give the key and it'll take you straight to it. I'm like, okay, so which one, if you are thinking about efficiency, which one should you use to access items? Oh, the dictionary, obviously, because the key will take you straight to it. Or an index, you have to iterate through every individual one. If you understand the concept itself, it should be easier uh, to work with it. So you need to understand these terms and concepts, the definitions of them, what they are for, and resetting that learning curve using stuff like Anki is a great way to really solidify that. Um, Two qualities that you must develop, right? We talk about two strategies. One is you got to put in the work. Bottom line, that's it. You have to put in the work. You can't, as I mentioned, you can't watch someone code and think you're going to learn it, right? Uh, for example, and one thing I want to say, if you are going to be gone all day and you want to stream, watch me from your phone, I'd rather you not waste your time. If you want to, it's fine, but you're not gonna learn. If we're going over JavaScript, we're doing JavaScript exercises, and you're on your phone just watching us while people are doing exercises, you're not gonna learn. You have to be behind your computer. Um, so if you're gonna be gone for like 30 minutes, an hour, understandable. But if you can't take part of any part of the lecture for the day, don't even bother tuning in because you're not gonna learn anything. You have to be coding. Um, it's the only way. When you guys get into the immersive program, your days are gonna go somewhere between, I think attendance is from 8:30 to like 9, and then 9 from to 12 is the lecture, 12 to 1 is lunch, 1 to 4:30 is individual or group work. And then like 4:30 to 5, I think is like stand down. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while. But the point of this is to let you know that you will be busy all day. Now, you do have individual and group work to work on your assignments. When I went to the immersive program, not to say that you guys will be in my same boat, but I was coding till like 1 or 2 a.m., right? I was coding till like 1 or 2 a.m. Um, and that's because I struggled with it, right? Um, when we were going to the lectures, I tried to code along. I couldn't. I got some fat fingers. I kept clicking the wrong keys as I'm trying to code along with the instructor. I would get a typo. I get an error. The instructor's two concepts ahead. I'm still fixing my bug on my computer. And you can only ask so many times for help before they're like, all right, Roger, like we got to move on with the class. Like I can't help you right now. Can you wait until like our next break or after class? At that point, why did I code along anyways if I just ran into an issue and I can't even fix it right now? So now I'm just sitting there just watching the lecture. Uh, so that was the issue I encountered. I couldn't keep up. I couldn't code along. So I had to record the recordings or the lectures. They recorded them and uploaded them to YouTube, but typically, like I told you guys, it takes a while before they're on YouTube, so they wouldn't be available to like 2 or 3 p.m. But I would code during lunch. I would eat lunch and work during lunchtime. So I needed to know the stuff, the information during my lunchtime by noon. So I started recording it on my computer using OBS software, if you guys ever used it, and I would rewatch the recording. So I would sit through like 3 or 4 hours of lecture just to rewatch it again, anyways, and code along again. So really, I got like 8 hours of lecture a day. I had to. That was the only way I could learn. And I would rewatch it over and over again. I would pause certain parts, review it, make notes on Anki, on the Microsoft Note application. I forgot what it's called. Um, that was my way of learning. I had to put in the work. I'm a little dumb, straight up. I'm a little dumb. I have to read it over and over again, right? I'm a visual learner too. If you are like me, you're gonna have to put in the extra work. Not all of us can understand the concept like that and get it. So be aware that depending on who you are, you might have to spend more hours after class to study it. But in my situation was this is what I'm putting my money on so I can feed my family when I leave the military. All right, this is how I'm bringing bread to the table. So I had to put in that work. So whatever motivates you guys, just be aware that one of the qualities that you must develop is you have to put in the work. If you struggle with deadlines, if you struggle with doing your homework, if you get complacent, which I don't think any of you guys will, for the most part, I don't really see. I've never really seen someone be lazy during the cohort, but you have to put in the work, right? That's just plain simple. And the next thing is to believe that you can do it. It's very underrated in adults, right? A lot of us come from broken households, right? Missing father figure, low income housing, right? I myself was an immigrant, um, naturalized citizen, so you know a lot of times we didn't get that. Hey, buddy, you can do it, right? Whatever you want to put your focus on, you can be whatever you want to do, like be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to do. You can do it. No one ever told me that. Um, so a lot of us might struggle with confidence, right? You're going to run into imposter syndrome, which is a huge thing in software development. A huge thing. I'm sure you feel that way right now. You might think, even though you passed the last technical assessment, you're like, am I even ready to be here? You might not feel ready enough, right? You're probably like worried. You're probably doing multiple coding challenges or learning other things. Like, what do I need to know to be as successful as possible during this cohort? I'm telling you right now, that feeling never goes away. It never goes away. Even right now, I work for Platoon, and some of the stuff I do for them, like, this sucks. Like, my code looks like trash. Like, it's spaghetti code. Like, there's no way they're okay with this. And then, like, you know, another instructor will review my code. Like, yeah, it looks pretty good to me. I'm like, what the heck? To this day, I still struggle with the same thing, right? And I'm the guy that's teaching you guys, right? So it never goes away. It happens, right? So just be aware of that. So just put in the work and then believe in yourself. You guys are exactly where it should be. Guillermo is a great judge of character, the man who gave you your life technical assessment, and if he gave you the green light, it's because he believes that you can make it. We talked about imposter syndrome, right? You know, have you ever been in a position where you made it up in the ranks and then suddenly you start looking at other people coming to you for answers and you're like, what the heck? Like, why is everyone coming to me? Like, I don't know myself. It's kind of like when you're an adult and you're like, I need an adulter adult because I don't feel like an adult yet. Right? When you guys go to your first like medical appointment as a grown man and you're like, I don't I don't know what I'm doing, but you're a grown adult, right? You feel how did I even get into the situation? I'm not a real adult. Same thing. You feel like I'm not a real developer, right? I don't know how to code yet. I don't know what I'm doing. That feeling never goes away. There's a picture here of imposter syndrome with David Goggins because I think in an interview they asked him, David Goggins, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? And he pretty much said, never heard of her. So, be like David Goggins in that aspect. A lot of people don't like David Goggins, but that's just one thing to take from him. You know, he pretty much says like, that's not me. I don't have imposter syndrome. So, kind of try and embody that feature. He didn't really say I don't know her, but it was somewhere along that context. We went over Installfest, which is great. You guys already did it with Guillermo for the most part. Alex, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, moving on. So that takes care of the intro to FOP and learn the code and just my quick pep talk and ways to be successful. Now let's get into our first official lesson, which is going to be the terminal, Git, and GitHub. Um, if you went through intro to coding with me, you use code spaces, which really just babied you throughout the entire course. And that's like I mentioned, our audience was a of all ranges, ways of life. People don't know how to code or how to use computers, so we had to really put the guardrails on you guys. But now, for the most part, everyone should have VS Code installed. You should start using your terminal and so on and so forth. Um, so if at any point you have any questions, let me know. I will say this class, specifically this lesson, is a great way to start working with your Anki. So if you have Anki installed, I would make a deck where it's like Linux commands, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So Linux commands are probably one of the first things that you should get comfortable with and learning. You don't have to memorize them all now, but these Linux commands are the commands that you will be using almost every single day. And I will tell you which ones are more important than others as we go through them, so you're aware of that. But what is a terminal? Well, a terminal is a place where you can type commands that cause action, right? Hold on, my earphones just turned off. Hello? Test, 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 test. You guys hear me? Awesome. Sorry about that. Uh, but the terminal is also known as the CLI or command line interface. If you've never coded before, you probably saw this and you thought like, I'm not gonna touch this because it's gonna break my computer. In Hollywood, people type commands in here and they say stuff like, I'm in, and they look like they're hacking stuff, and you see a bunch of numbers and letters, and you think they're doing something. They're not. Uh, right? It looks very scary. It's not. Uh, if you don't put the correct command, it's not gonna give you anything. It'll just tell you like, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, try again. But we need to get comfortable working with the command line interface, right? Our terminal. This is where we're gonna do everything. Pretty much everything you can do on your computer, like opening up an application, navigating left and right. You can do with your terminal. The terminal is what is used to control your computer. Everything else is really just a GUI used for your average computer user. But you need to be comfortable with the command line interface because there's a lot of things that could be done with the CLI uh, that a GUI might not allow you to do. The GUI is restricted to what it was made to do, and the command line interface pretty much bypasses a lot of these things. So CLI versus a GUI, they both do the same things, but the CLI can do more though, right? Um, like this App Store button, right? By clicking this button, the only thing it's gonna do is open up the App Store. Uh, Maybe that's not a good example. Let's see. Think about a file. If I click like a documents folder, I can create a new file. I can delete a file. There's certain things I can do there, but I wouldn't be able to change, or at least I don't know if from the top of my head, restrictions on a file, like who can read, access it, uh, and so on and so forth. Check when it was created. I don't know exactly off the top of my head how to do that. I could do that very quickly with a quick command using a GUI. I'm sorry, using the terminal. Um, Something like Anki. Anki is a GUI, a graphical user interface. The only thing I can do with with the Anki GUI is whatever they program this to do, which is either these buttons here, um, these buttons, the clicking of these hyperlinks. I'm only limited to what the GUI allows me to do in the interface. The command line interface uh, overrides all that. Doesn't have a GUI. It has specific commands to do all this. So really, both of the things are the same thing. One is a nice, pretty image that we can visually see and identify what it's doing because of the picture. It's used for your average user, so grandma can open up a Facebook and upload pictures of her grandchildren without having to learn Linux commands, right? We're going to use the CLI because we want root access to things, right? We want to get access to things that a regular user couldn't do by just navigating through a GUI. We want to get to the nitty gritty of stuff, right? So get comfortable with your terminal. So I recommend that you pin your terminal to the bottom of your taskbar. So definitely pin it here, um, because you're gonna be using it a lot. If you are using a Weasel, if you're on Windows, your terminal should look something fairly similar to this one here on the right. This is an outdated picture. If you're using a Mac, it will look something like this. Um, if you installed Ubuntu, you might have the option to use different terminals. I have it defaulted to give me Ubuntu. If it doesn't give you Ubuntu when you open it up and you get something like command prompt or Windows PowerShell, you might get something like this, right? So just make sure that you can open up and select Ubuntu. If you want it to default to Ubuntu every single time, you want to click this down arrow, click on settings, and then you can change the default profile to Ubuntu if that's something you want to do. That's what I have my set to. If you went through the install phase completely already, you should see something very similar to this, like your username and your computer name, something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. This should be your Ubuntu user that you're using. When you guys installed Ubuntu, really what you did is you created a small little pocket in the corner of your computer where you created the little virtual machine. That's your Ubuntu. The reason we do that is one, we want to be able to access Linux commands, so we can all be on the same page and working. Um, but also, it keeps your work away from everything else from your computer, right? If you're like me, who had a gaming computer when he went through the immersive program, I had all these files of different garbage. So it was nice to be able to have Ubuntu in there because it separated my regular files away from my coding stuff. Also, another great thing about having something like Ubuntu is you can create, something like a virtual environment, which we'll talk about later on, to have different versions of different dependencies of your programs. Like you might have a website that was created using a version of Python from like 10 years ago, or you might have a different website using the most latest version of Python, right? Um, we can do stuff like that here and keep it away from everything else in our computer. So it should look something like this. Just make sure that you have access to one or the other. That way you can type commands in. These commands here are what you're going to want to add into your Anki deck if you are doing it. You don't have to get them all done right now, but just be aware these are going to be the commands that you will be seeing very often. Now, once again, you do not have to memorize these by today or tomorrow or next week. It's just commands to be aware of, um, and commands that you will need in the future and you will need to get good with time, but it's nothing that it's going to be game breaking that if you don't memorize it today, you're going to fail. The very first one that you see here is going to be your PWD, which is the acronym for Print Working Directory. This command here is great to figure out where you are on your terminal, right? Here's my terminal. When I type in PWD, it tells me where in my terminal or in my computer really am I located at. As you see here, I'm within the home folder, and inside of my home folder, I am inside of the Roger folder. That's me, my name, right? I created a user specifically for me, and within this user, I have all my other folders like my Platoon work, FOP work, intro to coding work, right? So PWD prints your working directory. It pretty much tells you where you are at on your terminal. Give me a second. Looking like this. Here is my uh my documents, right? Notice on my documents, I am within my documents folder. Within my documents folder, I am inside of Visual Studio 2022. And within Visual Studio 22, I'm within code snippets. And within here, these are the folders in here. This is pretty much what you see when you type in print working directory. It shows you the file path or folder path of where your terminal is located at, right? Let me see if I can find you. Um, home. All right. So here I am within Linux. I'm inside my Ubuntu. Here's my home directory. Here's that Roger directory that I showed you here, Roger. And then within here, I got Platoon, ENVS, personal projects. Let me go inside of Roger within my terminal so you can see that. Oh, my bad, LS. There's some other folders here that obviously my terminal doesn't show. These are hidden folders, and that's okay. I don't need access to them anyways. But notice here's my terminal. When I type in ls, which we'll talk about in a little bit, the ls really, it just shows me everything within the directory I'm in. I see here that I got a couple folders and some files. That matches here, Platoon, ENVS, personal projects. I don't see the file. That's okay. Uh, Here it is. Here's the files. Example.js and the example.py file. All these other folders and files, I'm not gonna touch them. These are strictly for Ubuntu. Don't touch those if you are within your working directory. But let me go ahead and go into Platoon. Here I have a couple folders from Platoon. I'm gonna do it in my terminal too. I'll give you the command here in a bit, but I'm gonna go into Platoon and I can type out pwd. Here I'm in home Roger Platoon. Notice here on my documents the file path home Roger Platoon. This matches, right? I can show the folders within here, and it matches the same thing here. So once again, print working directory, it's going to show you where you are on your terminal and what directory your terminal is in. And the visual representation of that is literally, you see it here, right? Within your documents folder, you can see the path that I took to get within these folders, right? Awesome. So print working directory, it's a great way, pretty much saying, hey, where am I? Right? Straightforward. It's saying, where am I? Show me where I'm at. Show me the location. Now, the next command we see here is going to be very important. It's going to be the mkdir, make directory is the acronym for it. Mkdir, mkdir, whatever you want to say, is short for make directory. And directory is just a fancy word for folder, right? So if you hear me say directory, I'm referring to folder, right? That's just what we're calling it. Uh, so make directory is going to allow you to create a folder in your location. So here is pwd. I'm here where home and Roger are at. The command that I've been using here that I have not shown you, ls, it shows all files within a directory. So that's what I'm doing here. The ls is going to show me all the files and folders within the location I'm at. As you see here, I have 3 folders: Platoon, ENVS, and personal projects. And I got 2 other files here, example.js and example.py. I created these earlier. Well, let me go ahead and use the mkdir command to make a new folder. So I say mkdir space, and I'm going to say example folder. Now I'm going to use the ls command again to list out all the folders and files. And I now see here that I have the example folder on my terminal. So it's working. I created that folder. So mkdir will make a new folder in the current location that you are located at. All right. Now, how do I move into other folders while in my terminal? I know where I'm at, but now I want to navigate left, right, or really up or down. Well, I want to go into the example folder I just created. The command for that is the cd command, Charlie Delta, which is short for change directory. This is going to allow you to move to a different folder. The way it works is by levels, up or down, right? If I want to go into the example folder, I am moving down a level into the example folder. That's how I like to think about it, right? So I want to go down into the example folder. So I'm going to say CD to change directory, example folder. Notice that this changed. It added something. It says / example folders, right? Originally, I only had my user at development, right? Roger at development. That was my file path, I guess, right? I was at the root where there was no other folder of files. I went into example folders. Watch what happens when I type in pwd, print working directory. This says I am within home, I'm within Roger, and within Roger, I am within the example folder directory. So it's showing me my file path. Cool. I could type ls to list out all the folders and files, and I get nothing in return. In code, usually when you see no feedback, we take that as good feedback. No feedback is good feedback, right? So although I didn't get an error message, that's the important part here, right? So I know I didn't get an error message, so there's nothing wrong, but I also didn't get anything back, so that means also telling me that there's nothing in here. When I list out folders and files because nothing came back, there's no folders or files within here. And I know that because I just created this directory. Now let's go back up. I'm done doing what I want to do in here. I want to go back up a level to where I came from. So we're going to change directory. Now to go up, you put 2 dots. So change directory, and I want to go a level up. You use the command of 2 dots here, 2 periods. And notice here, I no longer have this example folder added to the end of my file path. If I type in pwd, I'm within home inside of Roger. I can list out the folders and files, and I see here that I am back in the original location from where I started. I am no longer within example folder. Now, let's say I'm deep into my folder files, right? I went into multiple files. I went inside of Platoon folder. I went into my FOP folder. I went into FOP summer 2025 and into lesson 01. I just went through a bunch of levels inside of my folders. I type in ls to list out within here. I got 2 files, one called readme.md and one called getpair. I want to go back all the way up from where I started. Well, I can do 2 things. I can type in cd ... multiple times, or I can use the tilde command, cd tilde, which goes back to the home directory. And instead of going back a level at a time, it just takes me back to the start point. So the tilde command after the cd is a great way to kind of go back all the way to the start point without having to go navigate folder through folder over and over again. So another very helpful command. All right. Next is going to be touch. The touch command is going to be to create a file. Don't ask me why it's called touch. I don't know. Uh, all I know is if I want to create a new file, you would think it'd be something like make file, just like we had make directory. It's not, right? So let's go ahead and jump into the example folder. So I'm going to say change directory, cd, and then I'm going to type in example folder, and I can type in pwd to see where the directory I'm in, and I can see I am successfully within the example folder. Within here, I'm going to create a new file using the touch command. So to create a new file, I say touch, put a space, and the name of the file. I'm going to say example file.py. Now, I didn't get any feedback, but if I type in ls to list out my files, I now get something in return, which is the file that I created, right? So I can make folders using the mkdir command, make directory, and I can make files using the touch command to create a new file. Do I have any questions so far?
So this might be out of scope, but if you didn't have a GUI, how would you access the CLI?
I think Windows. Like,
Okay.
there's a Windows command. There's shortcuts for it all.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head. There is a command for it. I'll get you an answer on the break, but I'm pretty sure there is a keyboard command that you type in and it opens up your command prompt.
Okay.
Is it control Windows R?
I don't know. I'm on Mac.
Mm. Yeah, I'll get you the answer later. Uh, I know every computer has a way of doing it. I just don't know off the top of my head. All right, Tony said the Windows R. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Uh, I think you're right. All right. Um, cool. So we talked about touch. The next thing, which was the ls command, which I already talked about it very briefly. This just shows you all the files within a directory. You're gonna be using this command a lot, especially to know what what's in wherever the directory you're in, right? All of these commands here, for the most part, except the next two, are useful. But ls allows you to see all the files within the directory. The next one is ls-l. This shows all files within a directory with extra info. So I use ls, I see example file.py. If I say ls space dash l, I see the same thing. I can see all the files, but it's gonna give me more information that I asked for. Now, the first thing I see here is what looks to be like some kind of code. I see like dashes, R, and W's. This is the permissions that this file has. Um, I don't know the top off my head. I have to look it up every single time I use this. I'm not gonna lie to you. But this tells you the user, like I think like the guest, whether they can read, write, who has access to this file and what can they do with this file is pretty much in short what this is saying, right? I think this was saying like the super user can read and write this one. I think a regular user can only read this, and I forgot what the third one means. Um, but there is a way to change this. There's a specific command used to change this. I think it's called like chmod, the name of the command, and then you pass in a specific code. It's like a number code. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't use this command often, but it is something you can use to change the permissions on a file. The next thing you see here is like Roger and Roger, like the owners and whoever created it, I think. We see like date timestamps, right, when this file was created. So obviously it gives you a lot more information than you really need. Uh, it's not always useful. It has like a very unique time of when you would use it. Um, when I used it was when I was like SSH, using SSH to get into my uh my Ubuntu session on my deployed website. That's the only time I ever had to use it to get onto the server. But besides that, I haven't really had to use it. So I've only used like two or three times really. Um, next we have the ls-la, which is something very similar to that as earlier. Shows all files with extra info, even if they are hidden, right? So this is going to show you hidden files, which as you see here, I only had example file.py, but when I use this command, I got like two other files here, which I did not create myself. I don't even know where it's coming from. I don't even know what these files are, to be honest. But there are hidden files within here. So ls-l and dash la are all going to be very situational. You don't always need them. It's helpful to know they exist. Really, the next useful one here is going to be the RM. The RM allows you to remove a file. So I'm gonna go ahead and list out the files I have here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the example file.py. I don't need it. So to do that, I type in rm space and the name of the file that I want to remove, and I press enter. If I use the ls command to list out my files and directories, I no longer get any feedback because it was removed successfully. All right. So the rm is a great command to know. The next one is to remove a folder. Right? Let me go ahead and I'm gonna go back up a level. So I'm gonna change the directory and use the dot command. I'm gonna list out my folders and files, and I see here that I'm no longer within the example folder, and I want to remove this folder. I don't like it. So to remove a folder, use the rn command again, but this time you're gonna use the -r, and it's gonna remove the folder for you by typing in the name of the folder. Now, Roger, why do you need the -r command? Why can't you just remove a folder just like you did the file? Well, what if that folder has files within it? If you try to remove a folder without using the -r command, you're going to get an error. And that's because it doesn't remove directories in the event that you have other files within there, right? It needs to know how to handle the files within that folder if you're trying to delete a folder. It doesn't matter if you try to delete a file because a file is just one individual item. But if you try to use the rm command without the -r, it won't know how to remove it because there's other files in there, or there's the potential of files being in there. So what the -r is saying is I want you to remove this folder recursively. So I want you to go in there, delete every file one at a time, and then delete the folder. That's what the -r is saying. So I can remove this by using the -r. I list this out, and I no longer see the example folder. Now, there is another command. Let me go ahead and make this file. There we go. Let me go ahead and make this folder again. I'm going to say make directory, example folder. And if for whatever reason there's a folder you're trying to remove and it won't remove it, you are able to force it. Right? So instead of just -r, what you do is you add an F at the end of it. Right? And the reason for that is because some folders might have like protected rights on it where like it keeps it from being deleted. Right? So if you try to delete it using your GUI, like on the documents page, it might give you an error. It might prevent you from deleting it. If you do it from your terminal like this, it'll force the deletion. Now, be very use this sparingly. You don't want to just force delete everything recursively because you don't know what you're deleting. So unless you know what's being deleted from a folder that has like protected rights, don't use the F command after the R. But once again, the -r and -rf, they're pretty much the same thing, but one is being forced. Does that answer your question, Thomas? Awesome. Uh, Let me go ahead and delete the example folder so I can show you. And there you go. It's gone. Cool. So these commands here, except minus the -l and -la, are going to be the commands you will use the most within your time here in Platoon and anywhere else. Now, here are some other commands that are not as important, but still noteworthy, right? The first one here is a command that you've seen, which is sudo, which stands for super user do, right? This gives you user root level permissions. Really, it makes you like all powerful. This is so you can override like protections on your computer. Sometimes when you try to install something, you saw this during the install phase, it might ask you for like, you know, you need like admin permission. Sudo overrides that. It's saying, I don't care, I'm doing it anyways, and it forces your computer to run a command. This was very helpful during the install phase because sometimes if you didn't use sudo, it's going to refuse to install something. So sudo gives you user root level permissions. Don't worry, we didn't make you install anything bad. It's just so we can override any permissions you might have on your computer. Right? So sudo stands for super user do, allowing you to run a command without being restricted. The next command, once again, these are not commands you will see often. Um, Maybe if you were in the DevOps, because none of you guys are in DevOps, you're not going to see these often, but they're still noteworthy to know that they exist. The cat command, it stands concatenate, I believe it is the short, the actual word for it. Cat is the short abbreviation for it. It allows you to list, combine, and write file content to standard output. Let's see. How can I do this? Cat example.js. I think there you go. Uh, Maybe I forgot. I got this name wrong, but notice that I used the cat command on example.js, and it quite literally showed me what was written in that file. So instead of opening that file manually to read the contents of it, I used the cat command and it gave me the content of that file and printed it here in my console. So a helpful way to read your file. Um, the next command here, you might use this not as often, but you will use this probably, is a CP command, which is copying, right? The CP command copies files or directories and their content to make something new, right? The way this works is as follows. I see here I have example.js and example.py. I can say something like CP. I want to copy example.py and I want to call it example2.py. Notice how I structured this. I said CP space. So I'm going to copy. Well, what am I copying? I'm copying example.py. After you specify what file you're copying, you put another space and then you give that new copy a name. When I press enter, I can type in ls and I now see that I got both files here, right? Example.py and example2.py. So I kept my original, I made a copy of it and called it example2.py. So I have both here. And it's important to know that difference, right? CP will copy files or directories and their content. Now, let's look at the mv command. The mv command moves a file or renames it, right? I'm going to use the example2 file as an example. I'm going to say mv example2.py and I'm going to say example3.py. So it's fairly similar syntax to how I use the copy command. But instead of CP, I'm using the MV command. And the way or what it's going to do is going to be a little bit different than how CP works. I press enter and I type in ls. And I want you to notice that I did not create a new file like the CP did. It changed the name of example2 to example3. So nothing was created. I just renamed the file. So how do we move and how do we rename something using the mv command? If the file or folder that you're renaming it to does not exist, it'll rename the file or folder. If I am trying to move it to a folder and I type in the name of that folder, it's going to register that that folder exists. And instead of renaming it to that name, it's going to move it in there. Does that make sense? It's going to depend on the context of how it's being used, whether that item that you're naming it or giving it exists or doesn't. Does that make sense? Right on. Time is 7:34. Let's go ahead and take our second break of the night. I will see you guys at 7:44. If I ever forget to record, let me know because I will do that at least once in a class. It's happened where I forget an hour of recording. So we talked about cat. We talked about copy, move. Next thing was to use the find command. This one's a little. I always mess this one up. Let me go ahead to Platoon. I'm gonna look for. Okay, I know what I'm doing. Find lesson 01. Okay, fine. Hello. Okay, find lesson 01. How did it? How do I do it? Find a file somewhere. Oh, file. My bad. Platoon. What's a good one? We have get pair, or we could just look for all readmes. Find readme.md. Oh my God. Okay. I don't remember off the top of my head how it's done. Um, it's not one of the command that I use often. This is more of a DevOps thing. So if you're not in DevOps, you probably won't use this one or really the grep one either. But find will allow you to find a file somewhere. I don't remember off the top of my head the proper syntax for it. Um, I always mess this one up. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I'm not doing that. Um, you could, I guess, specify a file path like find, and then you specify within the file path, and then you give it something like um name, and then you're looking for like readme.md. There you go. Yeah, it's annoying. There is a structure of how it should go. Like you start with the command find, and then you give it like a command like where, like, do you want to start at the current directory you're on, a directory below? Do you want to add a specific file path? And then you specify what you're looking for. Are you looking for a name, the type of file? Are you looking for only Python files, only JavaScript files, text files? Um, and then the pattern for what you're looking for. I was looking for the pattern that has the term of read me. And as you can see here, it's looking through all my files until it gives you the output and where they're located at. I have a lot of README files, as you can see here. Um, so yeah, the find method, it's cool, but I mean, you're rarely gonna use it. Um, the only time I've ever found any use for it was trying to find all my virtual environment files and where they were located at, so I can move them to one consolidated folder. That's the only time I've ever used it in 3 years. So, and a lot of that's gonna go for these commands. It's just useful to know they exist. Uh, I applied to a DevOps role once. Um, Even though I didn't do DevOps just for like um, to see if I'll get it. And I actually made it to like the final interviews against like two other people. Um, and they asked me questions like these, like how to use this command. I guess DevOps use it a lot, working with Linux. So if you're into that, you can look it up. grep allows you to search by word or by character match. It's very similar to find. It's just a little bit more powerful. We're not gonna get into that one. Not too useful for y'all. chmod changes a file's read, write, execute permissions. I mentioned this to you guys earlier. Uh, there are specific combinations, like what they mean. The first digit is permissions for the owner of the file. The second digit is permissions for the group that owns the file. The third digit is permissions for others. So this was that little hash, that code that you saw when we used the ls command with the dash l, right? You have an R, W, or an X, right? Who can read, write, and execute. The number represents that ability. So there are specific commands that you use, like change mod, grants read, write, and execute permissions to the owner, group, and others. So different commands do different things. I don't remember these numbers from the top of my head, so you don't have to either. You don't use this often enough to have to worry about it. If you need to change the permissions of a file, you can quite literally just Google what I just did, chmod codes. Uh, One of the beauties of software development is that you don't have to know everything. You just need to know how to find the answer, right? You guys are not computers. We're showing you how to work with computers and programs, right? That is the difference between someone who knows nothing about software development and is using ChatGPT. Can they find the answer eventually? Probably after hours or days of messing around, trial and error, and code full of bugs. But for people like you who will know how to ask the right questions, AI is a very powerful tool for you. People who are not in software development are like, "Oh, AI is going to steal our jobs." It's not. Uh, Have you ever tried asking it a question and they gave you the wrong answer over and over again? And even after you told it, like, stop giving me this answer, I already told you it's wrong, it'll give it to you again the next time. It's really annoying. And you'll see that when working with AI and going to this cohort, if you use ChatGPT, it'll mess you up. So you don't need to know everything, you just need to know how to find the answer or how to reach an answer, right? So don't hesitate to Google stuff like this. Very helpful. Uh, Next is ping. Not useful either. Really, just to check if a network or server is reachable. I think I could do that with Facebook. Ping facebook.com. And it pings it. It is reachable. That means it's online. Not really useful. I need to take that one out, TBH. Uh, a useful one, though, is history, especially if you want to check out how you did something or how you got to where you're at. History is it's useful to check what commands you've been inputting, what files you've been messing with, what did you just delete, or what the heck you're looking at, right? So history is a great thing to kind of see what you've been doing on your terminal. The next command, very, very useful, is going to be the clear command, right? You see me use ls, go into different directories, and I've had a bunch of stuff on my screen. Using the clear command gives you a clean terminal. It removes everything that you've been typing, but you can still type in history and get everything that you've used. So if you want to go back and see what commands you use, you can still use history, but at the same time, you also have the ability to clear out your screen so you can have something that's workable and it's not overcrowded. The tab command is for auto completion. I'm trying to go into my code platoon folder, so I'm gonna say cd. I'm gonna type in code. And if I press tab, it's going to autocomplete Platoon because no other folder or file starts with COD. So it only has one folder to autocomplete to, which is Platoon. So tab is very useful when you're navigating through folders. Um, Control C terminates a running command. Control C is probably a command you've used already if you've been coding and you created an infinite loop. It's how I stopped that find command earlier. I didn't want to continue looking for stuff, so I typed in Control C while in my terminal, and it'll stop whatever is running. Uh, so if you find yourself running an infinite loop, let's say, give me a second. Let's clear Python for I. Let's say for I in range of print I wonder if I can do it like this. There we go. Keyboard interrupt. Uh, so I just ran a long loop. It's not an infinite loop, but I wanted to print out I a million times, and I got up to 98,798. It lagged a little bit on screen, so you didn't get to see all the numbers. Um, but I typed in Control C, it does keyboard interrupt, and it stops whatever command was running. So Control C, great way to stop a command. Um, what you just saw me was open up a Python shell to write Python in my terminal. So you can quite literally type in Python or Python 3 if you don't have the alias. And what you'll see here, it'll open up a Python shell where you can write Python code. I can say print hello FOP, and it'll run the print statement here, and I can see hello FOP. It's useful if you want to write quick Python commands. One thing to note is if I exit out of here, whatever variables I created will not be saved. Everything gets wiped. To exit out of your Python shell, you type in exit, open and close parentheses, and it closes out your Python shell. It is something useful to do. It's something notable to use because you will have to use it a little bit when working with your backend. In Django, um, we use the shell from Django to kind of mess around with the database. So it's helpful to know that you can do this. Control C terminates a running command. Control Q undo a terminal freeze. I've never had to use Control Q, so I'm not even gonna talk about it because I don't even know how it works. TBH. Uh, we talked about removing folder even if it has protected files. So the RF, remove recursively and forced, right? And the name of the folder. So once again, use this very sparingly unless you know what's in that folder. Don't remove it by the force command because you might delete something important. And then the last but not least command is going to be the code command. This is going to be how you open up your files in VS Code from your terminal. So if I want to open up example.py, I can say code and I say example.py. And it'll take a second here, but it should open up my VS Code and that file I attempt to open up. Here is example.py and I'm here. All right. So you can do that. You also can use code to open up a new file that doesn't exist. So example.py does exist, but if I say code does not exist.py, it will open it up. I don't know why it's. I guess it's updating my VS Code. Give me a second. It doesn't always do this. It just I haven't updated in a while. Give it a bit. It opens up my VS Code, and it will open up that file that I created. Does not exist.py. Notice what happens next. So it opened up the file, but if I close it up and I type in ls, does not exist.py is not here. So I opened up this file in VS Code. Let's do it again. Code does not exist.py. I'll open up on VS Code, but if I don't save it, it won't create the file. Um, Watch this. So I'm here now. I click inside the terminal and I'm gonna press Control S. And now if I close this out, I should be able to come back here and type in ls, and I see it here. It does not exist. So when you use the code command on a file that doesn't exist, make sure you save it so it actually saves it in your terminal if you do it that route. Or just create the file using the touch command and then open it. I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that functionality. Let me go ahead and remove these files that I do not need. Remove does not exist. Example.js. You are able to chain different things. As you can see here, I'm removing multiple files at a time. Just separate them with a space. And then I type in ls and they're all gone. right? So you are able to chain this removal process. You can chain commands as well just by separating them with a space. So useful tip. All right. Here's a note for the command above to work. You must do the following: in VS Code, go to View, Command Palette, Show Command, Install Code Command in Path. Uh, you should have already done this when you installed VS Code. I think it asks you like add to path. If you selected that, then you should be good to go. If it didn't, then this is how you can manually fix that. So just be aware. Does the command line not allow keyboard shortcuts? Um, I don't know. It does. Like Control C is a keyboard shortcut.
Well, specifically how I navigate through, I guess, code and stuff, I use like control and then the arrows to jump over words. Stuff like that's not working. Or like
Oh,
control backspace,
in the Python shell or just in general?
just in general. It's not letting
Oh,
me.
I'm not quite sure. I don't think so. I've never.
Okay.
I think maybe the N keyword. Yeah, like N. I pressed N and delete it, or I went to the very end. The DEL keyword deletes it.
Huh.
Some shortcuts don't work, so
Okay.
I'm not quite sure which one exactly you're trying to do, but
Yeah, if you
it's
type
not.
a if you want to delete like one entire word and not the entire sentence, you press control backspace and it should just delete that word. Typically like in VS Code or if like I'm Googling something. But then it just felt really weird when it didn't allow it. So I
Yeah, I
was just
mean,
wondering.
it's not exactly like a file, you know. So
Okay.
it will have some restrictions. I know some things work, but I guess not everything.
Okay, got it.
All right. Do I have any questions on the command line interface and any of the Linux commands that we have talked about? Awesome. All right. So once again, to reiterate, these commands, you don't need to know them all right now. That is okay. You will get better at them as you work with the terminal and using Linux. Um, it'll give it a couple weeks and then you feel very comfortable with it. It'll come naturally. Once you realize like I'm trying to do this, how do I do it again? Just kind of look it up real quick. Oh, that's how I did it. And then by with time, it'll come a lot natural. Uh, write these down in your Inky deck if you really want to learn soon. It helps reset that learning curve. So write them in your Inky deck. There's a lot more commands out there, uh, but I am not going to sit here and talk to you for hours on every possible command in Linux. We talked about the meat and potatoes of what you need to navigate to left and right of your Linux command terminal. All right. Um, Another thing that you can do with your terminal is you can customize it. I don't care for this. This is very popular with the ladies. They love coloring here. So if you guys are up for it, by all means, there are ways to change the colors and fonts of your stuff on your terminal. I don't care for it, but if it helps you, there's YouTube tutorials to do this. So try it out if it's what you like to do. All right. So done with one boring thing, on to the next less boring thing. But Git. What is Git? Uh, I mean, you have the answer here, right? Git is a local version control system that is used to track changes to files. Now, you've heard two different terms. You've heard Git and you've heard GitHub. And I'm sure if you ask yourself, what is the difference? Are they the same thing? No, they're not. Git and GitHub are really two different things. Um, but before we dive into it, uh, let's talk about what version control is. A local version control is really the way I like to think about it is almost like a checkpoint, like saving system, right? Think about when you play video games growing up, and after every level you probably saved, or right before you fight a boss, you save your game in case you die, right? Kind of like that, right? Uh, it's snapshots of your history of what you've been doing, where you can save your progress, right? That is what a local version control system is. It is tracking their version of your work. Ignore the term local. Just focus on the term version control. It is tracking the progress of your work, um, different snapshots as it goes. Now, why is this useful? Well, it's useful for different ways. The first straightforward reason why it's useful is in the event you mess up your work, right? Let's say you're working on your program, you made great progress. It would suck if your computer turned off and you lost everything, right? Power goes out, your computer gets fried, lightning hits your house, something. Your kid knocks over your PC, you drop your coffee on it, and you lose the content of the computer, whatever it may be, right? Whatever it may be that led to your loss of progress, that would really suck, right? Let's say if you guys think back to before we had stuff like clouds, right, or use or not USP, like cloud storages, uh, in the old days for you older folks, if you were working on the computer at school, you're working on an essay, and then they're about to close, or let's say you're in the library, you gotta close, but you're not done with your essay. You gotta bring it home, so you save it to a USB drive and you take it somewhere else and open it there. Uh, Version controls allow you to do that. Keep snapshots or records of your work so you don't lose your progress. Um, let's say you built an application. Everything works great, right? You have from start to finish, you have everything you need. But let's say you wanted to add a new feature. It would suck to try to create like a new web page on your website, and then suddenly something breaks and your entire website goes down. That wouldn't be, pretty cool. So version controls allow you to do it. Now, how do they do that? Well, on GitHub, you're able to save your application, your work, right? Let's say you have a website for selling lamps, right? Um, GitHub will track the progress of your work. It has all the folders and files for everything. On GitHub, every time that you add something on GitHub, it takes a screenshot of your work, right? And whatever version it is at the time. And GitHub tracks this record of progress of your work. And if you were to mess something up, you're able to go on GitHub and navigate to a point in time where your project still work and reset your work to that time and date. It's almost like going back in time. What it also allows you to do is create clones or copies of your work. And that's kind of what you see here on this page. You see this nice little image. Uh, the main thing I want you to pay attention to right now is the middle line. This is what they call the master branch, or you might hear the main branch, right? This is the main timeline of your work. The first circle here is probably the start of your project, right? And every other circle here as you progress the timeline is probably major milestones of your project. Like you created the login screen, the gallery, the about page, the contact page, right? Every green dot here is a major point in your work as you progress. But we see here two different things. We see two paths on top and on the bottom. One is your work and one is someone else's work. What GitHub, or what version control systems in general allow you to do is it allows you to keep the main timeline of progress for your project, and then it will make a copy of this where you can work safely without affecting the original, right? So here you see the timeline diverge into another path. At this point here, it's going to create an exact replica of your project at this point in time, and you can work without affecting the original, and you can create something new, add a new button, add a new feature, right? And then once it's complete, what you're able to do is merge this work into your original. back to the original timeline without affecting your original work, right? And just the same way that you do it, you can have other people collaborate with your work as well, right? You see yourself diverge here, you can have somebody else on the same website working on a different feature. So version control systems allow us to do this without messing up our entire application. Do I have any questions? Stand by, my computer's about to die. I gotta charge it real quick.
if
Ask away.
you if you pull off of a version, we'll say like, in between those two green dots is like version 1.5. If you pull off of that, it keeps your work, screenshotted, quote unquote, at 1.5. And say when you remerge it, it's at like version 3. When you remerge it, will that cause some issues, or occasionally should you try to pull a newer version to see if there's been any changes or modifications that affect what you're doing?
That's a great question. Typically, whenever you're working on something, every single day before you even start work, you should immediately pull the updated changes. So this branch right here should constantly, every single day they're making work, they're going to check the main branch and pull any changes into the version they're currently working on so they can stay up to date. That way they don't deviate to a point where it becomes an issue of conflict later on when they're trying to merge. So it's good practice and it's expected that you are constantly grabbing the updates from the main branch into your side branch. Additionally, when you're working on a feature, that's all you're working on. You're not touching other stuff, right? You shouldn't be touching stuff that doesn't matter or isn't in your scope of responsibilities. So also, when they merge back in, you have to do what's called a pull request. This pull request, which we'll talk about in a little bit, typically involves somebody that knows more than you reviewing your code, ensuring there's no conflict between the files, right? So there's a lot of steps that go to ensure that nothing gets messed up. But the point of the idea of this is that it gives you something to work on, right? Without messing up your code. Does that make sense, Thomas?
Yeah.
All right. Um, so Git provides save points and possible backups for your code should you need them. Now, I asked the question, what is the difference between Git and GitHub? Who thinks they know the difference between Git and GitHub? Cool. Git is your local version control. The keyword there is local. That is on your computer, right? The progress or the state of progress on your computer. GitHub is the remote version control. That's somewhere else, right? And that's important to note because let's say you're working on a project, so you pull it from the remote repository online and you make a copy onto your computer. The copy on your computer is being tracked by Git, the local version control, only on your computer. That means if you're making changes on the copy on your computer, the local version, the remote version doesn't know that. It's not aware of the changes. That's important to note. And vice versa. If someone uploads something new to the remote repository, your local version on your computer isn't aware of those changes. So Git is the local version control on your computer, and GitHub is the remote version on the GitHub server. Does that make sense? So it's important to know that, right? Which is why it's very important that when you're working on your computer on whatever feature, you're constantly pulling the changes from the remote repository down to your local repository, so you're constantly up to date, right? Really, GitHub is kind of like a shared drive. Everyone here military, right? Everyone here was an actual service member or still in. there's shared drives. If you guys were officers or NCOs, there's shared drives of all, with field manuals, PowerPoints, memorandums, everyone's records and stuff. Same concept. That's what GitHub is. It's just a shared drive. That's all it is, right? Um, so be aware of that, right? What's in the shared drive and what's saved onto a USB or on that computer itself on a different folder that's not in a shared folder, two different things. So it's important that they're talking. Same concept. Okay. I thought I switched these. I guess I didn't. Um, we'll talk about this in a bit. So, what is GitHub? All our snapshots or commits are local. So, what happened to my computer stopped working? Local versus remote and shared repositories. So, I already talked to you guys about local and remote. All right, let's look at GitHub. If you do not have a GitHub account, you need a GitHub account. I think everyone here should have one. I'm not sure about you, Tony, but some of you do. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was uninstalled this.
Yeah, you're right. Why am I not send it? Stand by. I could have sworn it was. I gotta authenticate. Sorry, y'all. All right. Oh. All right. Here is my GitHub. Am I still sharing? All right, cool. Here's my GitHub. We'll talk about this later. Your profile. But here are my repositories. So once again, actually not once again, I haven't told you guys. Repositories. What is a repository? Who can tell me?
Sort of like
Place that holds.
a folder.
Go ahead.
It's a folder. That's all it is. They give it a fancy name. It is just a folder, right? Here's all my folders, repositories, different things I have. Let's go ahead and create a new repository, right? So whenever you're in your GitHub, you can go to your repositories right here. You can click the top right and go to repositories as well. However method you decide to go with, it should bring you somewhere like this. To create a repository, you're going to click New Repository. All right. From here, we have a pretty simple, streamlined process. You're going to choose the owner. We're going to choose me, my personal account, and I'm going to call this example repository, right? It's going to tell you if the name is available. It checks this against your own repositories, not everybody else's. But it's available. And then you can add a description. This is an example repo. Next, we can choose whether we want it visible or not. Typically, I make my stuff private. If you're expecting to share this with other people, you're going to want to make it public, especially if it's going to be your portfolio. Just make it public. Unless it's like an organization, it's for a company, it will typically be public if it's just for your portfolio, right? That way you can have people look through it if they want to. So I'll put it public for now. You can start with a template from other things that you might have. I don't have a template. The next thing here is it's going to ask me if I want to add a README. Who knows what a README is?
Like an instruction set.
Yeah, it's really just a text file.
Explanation of the file.
Yeah, exactly. It's a markdown file or a text file, really, that typically is going to explain or give you context to what that repository is for. Uh, it's going to tell you what the repository was created for. If it's for like an application, right? Let's say like a game. The README might have instructions of how to install the game. The install phase that you went through was a README file, right? That was created in a README file. So really, just it's some form of text file that you can write instructions to. Uh, it's for other developers, so they know how to work with the program or the files and folders that are in that repository. So READMEs are very, very useful. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create just a README here. The next thing here is we see a get ignore file. This is going to be very important later on in the future. A get ignore file is a file that you can add the names of other files. Now, why is that important? Let's say I'm creating a project, right? Sometimes there is sensitive information on a website, like keys, or another term for it will be like passwords, right? Let's say you need a password for something to access something on your application, and you use it for development. Well, it's probably not a good idea to upload that to GitHub, right? Because now people will have access to those keys. It'll make more sense once we start talking about APIs. If you don't know what that is and it sounds like foreign, don't worry about it. We'll get to it. But if you have APIs and you're paying for these subscriptions to these APIs, uh, and let's say you have like some kind of website and it has a lot of traffic. If you're getting thousands of people making API calls and someone uses your key, it can get very, very expensive very quickly. So it's important to ensure that you don't upload sensitive information to GitHub. That's what the git ignore file does. You create some kind of file that has all this secret information. That way your git ignore file, it'll always ignore this file. It'll make more sense once you get into the live immersive program. You'll see how it works in real time. Just know that the get ignore file is a file that keeps track of what files to ignore when you upload to GitHub. There's literally people who have programs that scrape GitHub repositories for keywords like key or secret. In the event that you accidentally upload your stuff to GitHub, and you might think to yourself, like, let's say you upload it to GitHub, you're like, oh shoot, I uploaded my key. Let me go ahead and take it down real quick. And you think, that those 2 minutes that it took you to delete it is will save you? No. People can scrape it within seconds with those tools that they're using. So be aware of that. If you upload it to GitHub, generate a brand new key. It's useless. Don't even bother thinking like I'm just gonna delete it real quick. I'm sure no one saw it. Chances are someone probably has access to it already. So just want to make sure I talked about that. And the last thing is license. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know what the heck these licenses do. I've never had to use it, so I'm not gonna try to lecture you about it. Just know that you're able to add some kind of license to your work in case you're trying to protect what you created. All the work I've done is either open source, or I don't care if someone copies it because it's not crazy for me. So I don't worry about licenses. So yeah. Anyways, once you set all this stuff up, it's as simple as create repository, and it's gonna bring you to a page like this. This is how your repository will look like, right? Um, Here we see the name of the repository. We have a couple buttons that really doesn't mean anything to you right now, so don't worry. What really matters is this part right here. I'm going to orient you real quickly. This part right here is a tab that's going to show you all the branches of your repository. So the branches is how many times someone copied the main branch and is working on a separate feature. Really, every possible version of your project, this is where you select it. Right? Notice I only have one branch. It's called main. That's it. I have no other branch. If there's other branches, you see them here, and I would be able to switch between them. Even tells you how many branches it has right off the bat. One branch. Um, you can sort through files if you had a lot of files. Not a big issue here. You're able to add files here. I rarely have ever had to use this part here. Uh, this button here is going to be very important, especially when copying or cloning this repository to your computer. I'll show you how to use this later. But below here is the files and folders of your project. On the bottom is the file that you currently have open. Right now, I have the README file opened up. That is by default the file that's going to show if you have nothing here. Or if you have a README, it'll show the README by default. As you can see here, the name of my repository, also the content of my README. Nothing crazy. Now, let's go ahead and go back to my repositories. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I want to show you something. It didn't give me what I wanted, and I think that's because I added a README. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. To delete a repository, you go to the repository itself, go to settings, scroll down, and you should see the danger zone. Here you can delete a repository. It's going to give you a bunch of warnings, and it's going to make you type out the name of your repository. I'm going to create it again because I wanted to show you what happens when you don't add a README. Okay. Owner, me. All right, cool. Here we go. When you don't add a README, it's going to give you this nice walkthrough of how to start working with your repo. I was hoping this will show you. We're going to go over these commands, but it quite literally walks you through the setup of how to get this working on your computer. These are the commands, and we'll talk about them, but I wanted to show you this in the event later on you forget how to do this. When you create a repo through GitHub, it'll tell you quite literally how to do it. But keep this in mind. All right. Do you have any questions so far? It's 8:28. We can go to our last 10-minute break, or we can kind of push through as much as we can right now. What do you guys want?
I'm good to push through.
All right. Let's go ahead. Let's find a good natural stopping point. All right. Here are the Git commands that you need to know to be able to work with Git and GitHub on your computer pretty much for the entirety of this course. The very first one and the most important one is git init. Init is short for initialize. Git init is going to create a special folder to hold commits. Let me show you how that works. I want you guys to open up your terminal, and I want you to create a folder called git example. So make directory, call it git example. We're going to use this for our demo. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go into my git example folder. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead. From here, I'm going to say code. Now, there's no file here yet. That's fine. I'm just going to open this up in VS Code by using the code command. And I should open it up. There shouldn't be no file. Oh, my bad. I should have done something else. Stand by. I want you to do code space dot. Code space dot. The dot is short for like all. There's no files in here, so obviously it's not going to open up a file, but it's going to open up the folder itself, everything within that folder. Right. Notice here that I got this default page. It's telling me to like start a new file, open a file. That's because I don't have any files in here. But notice my terminal. It's telling me where I am on my terminal. I am inside of Git example. On the left side, I have the Explorer page. It says Git example, and there's no files within here. This is correct. I have nothing in here, right? Now, there's two ways uh, to do this, but let's go ahead. I'm gonna say Git init and see what happens. I'm going to initialize a Git session within this directory, this folder, right? This is where I'm going to create my project. And this folder called Git example, I'm gonna initialize Git and I'll press enter. And I'm gonna see a couple messages on my terminal. It's gonna give me some hint here. Don't worry too much about it. What I really want you to notice here is this line right here. It says initialize empty Git repository in, and it gives me a file path. Let me click this. It's probably not gonna work. Let me go ahead and open up my documents. I want you to pay attention to this file path. I'm going to go to this exact file location on my computer. Gotta go to home, Roger. All right. I want you to notice this. This is my document. I am in home, Roger, Git example. You guys recall, I didn't create a folder and I didn't create a file within here. I just created the empty directory of Git example. I am inside of Git example. What's in here? A .git file. When I created this Git session, notice if I type in ls within the terminal, I don't see anything here. I initialize Git, but when I type in ls, I do not see anything in here. It's a hidden folder by default because it doesn't want you to mess with it. Right? I think I have hidden folders revealed, which is why I see it. I think. No, I do not. Well, I mean, I guess it should show by default then. But what happened? Well, when I was within this folder and I initialize Git, what it does, it creates a hidden folder that you can't see from here, but it's in there. And it uses this folder to keep a log of your progress of your project. This is how it knows the checkpoints or save points of your progress. It quite literally creates a hidden folder for you and it keeps it. It doesn't just magically do this, or it doesn't just magically know the progress of your code. It literally saves it somewhere. So it is here. That's what Git does. It initializes session and it starts recording what you do. So make sure you're aware of that. So it creates a special folder to hold commits. We'll talk about what commits are. We have a couple other commands here. The next couple commands here are very important. We have git add. Git add adds file to a staging area. How does that work? Let's look at the whiteboard.
Basically like a holdover before you submit the entire thing to the repository.
Tony, have you done this before? I knew you were lying. Yeah, it's something like that. So I want you to think. So this is your computer. I want you to think your computer as a factory, almost, right? A factory. You are, this is your VS Code. Uh, Your VS Code is going to make changes. It's going to do stuff. You're going to create files. You're going to add code to these files. You're going to create folders, right? This little factory, what the heck? Makes changes. These changes could be multiple things. It could be new files. It could be new code, new lines of text. It could be as simple as a space or a new line in the file. So your VS Code in this factory is making changes, right? These changes are being represented by these multiple things, right? There's a bunch of products, right? This VS Code machine is creating a bunch of stuff. Well, they're just there, right? Stuff is happening. You're coding. You're making progress. Let's say you made significant amount of progress. You've been coding for the last 2 hours. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to add this to somewhere where you can wrap it up, right? So what you're going to do is add it to a staging area. Git add. So there's multiple ways to add it to the staging area. You can specify very specifically what file or folder you want to add, or you can use the shortcut command of using the dot. The dot is used a lot in programming to represent all. So here we're saying git add all. So hey Git, I want you to add all the changes, right? So what this command is going to do is going to grab every change that you've made for the last 2 hours, every new file, every new line, and what it's going to do is going to put them in a staging area, right? We need more space here. Oh no. My bad, guys. We'll call it packing area. The packing area. That's really what it's doing here, right? Really, it's a folder. It's going to add everything to a consolidated folder saying, all right, you're going to add all these new changes into a location where I can kind of package them all up, right? Kind of wrap them up, make them nice and neat, right? That's what we do here. It's going to make one big package. Now, you can keep adding these things like new changes over and over again into this packing area, like almost like a box, right? You make more changes, you use git add again, and it puts in the packing area. Make more changes, more files, you can use git add again, add to the packing area. Let's say you're done for the day. I'm done. I'm ready to send these changes up to GitHub. I don't need it. All right, cool. The next step is using the commits. The commit is going to add everything in the staging area to the special folder as a snapshot or commit. So that staging area, it's here. It's your packing area. We'll call it staging. Get rid of packing. Your staging area. It's going to grab everything from the staging area. Using git commits -m. Now, what is -m? So after you have packaged it all up in the staging area, what you're going to do is you're going to commit to sending this change to GitHub. The next thing I want you to imagine is a pickup truck. Yes, sir. Right? Your git commit, what it's going to do is going to take everything from the staging area and it's going to put it inside of this pickup truck. right, to send it out to GitHub. The -M stands for message. Think of it kind of like when you send out a letter or a package. You have to put something on the package, right? Send it to this location. I am this person. It should receive this person at this address, right? It's something similar to that. Really, the message is more for you. When you commit something and send it to GitHub, because it's keeping a log of this, by adding a message, you can kind of identify what is what. Let's say you're specifically working on the login button, right? Let's say the login button, uh, your change should be like changing the color. So the message should be when you commit this to GitHub, updated button color to red. Something straightforward. Usually the industry, what they'll do is you have like a standard, like your commit message should be like first name, last name initials, your last four, and then like a message, something like that, or like whatever you're working on. So the message typically has to mean something to somebody, really, so you can identify what every commit should be doing. But that's what you're doing here. You're saying, hey, I want to grab everything from the staging area, right? And then I want to commit it with this message. And what you're going to do is you're going to package it up into this truck. Now, we're not done yet. The next step, the next and last step is git push. So we initialized, we added files to a staging area. When we were done to send the changes up, we used git commit to commit them, put them in a box, in a truck box or a box truck. And then the last part was using git push, which is pushing your code to a remote repository. That's what just happened here. After you made changes, you package them up, you commit it into, this folder, right? That Git folder I showed you. Here in my analogy, it's the box truck. We then use git push to send it out to GitHub. This is the flow of how your Git works with GitHub and when the commands come in use. Now let's take it back a notch. Let's talk a little bit more through these commands. So once again, git init with the very first command I talked to you about. It creates a special folder to hold your commits. Cool. The next part of the flow was git add. We had two versions of this. One was git add with the specific file you're trying to add, right? This adds a file to a staging area, or git add with the period, which adds all new changes / files to the staging area. So whichever one you want to use, up to you. But typically, you're going to find yourself using git add and the dots, right? Because you're going to be making multiple changes to multiple files at a time. You'll probably do it for about an hour or two, and then you go ahead and you want to add them all to the staging area. Now, once you're done, you're ready to kind of save your progress and send it up to GitHub. You're done for the day. You're going to commit all these changes. So you say git commit -m. After the -m, you're going to open up quotation marks, right? This is where your message goes. It adds everything in the staging area to the special folder as a snapshot or commit, right? It's the snapshot commit, same thing. Really, it's just it's taking it's making a checkpoint of your progress and saving it to this directory. We have another command here called git status. I don't use it too often, but I've used it a couple of times. This shows you all the files in the staging area. So you can check what files you've added when using git add. That's what git status does. Let's say there's a file that you accidentally added to the staging area and you don't want it there before you send it up to GitHub. You can use git rm for remove -cached and then name the file that you're trying to remove from the staging area. Right, so git status allows you to check the staging area. Git rm -cache allows you to remove files from the staging area. Another helpful command here is git log. Git log shows the history of your commits, not what's in the staging area. That's very important. It's going to check your commits. Finally, git push pushes your code to a remote repository, bringing us back to this little diagram, adding everything to the staging area, committing it, putting it in the box truck, and sending it up to GitHub. Do I have any questions about the flow of Git and GitHub, what any of these commands mean, or how they work with each other?
Do you have to have a GitHub repository created before you try to push to it, or will it kind of auto create one?
Yes, you need a remote. That's why I did this. Which, thank you for that. Brings me to the next point. So earlier, I created this repository. There's nothing here. It's just an empty GitHub repository. I want you to look at this command again. Notice here. This one doesn't matter. Ignore this. We see git init. We just did that. They're creating a readme here. This is really just because we didn't create one earlier. So by default, it's making you kind of connect all together while creating a readme. So it's helpful. So we can see that change. So let's do that. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add a readme. So we can say git add readme.md, which I don't think it'll work. Yeah, it didn't. I knew it. Why do you think it did not work? Who can tell me why? Because I don't have the file. That's what this did. It created the README file. That's what these two forward slashes are doing, but I didn't do that. I skipped it. So let's go ahead. Within this folder, by the way, I'm still within my Git session, right? I initialized Git in here. I'm within the folder. Let's go ahead and do touch readme.md. I created the file. I'm gonna say, this is my readme. I'm going to create a JavaScript file, touch example.js. Notice here's my example.js, console.log, hello. Cool. I've created some files. What was the next step? Who remembers? I need to add these to a staging area.
Add.
Right. So that kind of brings us back to the part on GitHub, right? They initialized, they added the README afterwards. We have two files, so I'm not going to specify the file. I'm going to use the git add dot because I got two files. So I'm going to say git add dot. Now, I didn't see anything noticeable here. How can I check if the files I added are in the staging area or not?
Status.
Status.
Git status, absolutely. So there you go. We use git status. I see I am on branch master. I have no commits yet. Changes to be committed. So I'm not committed. I've only added stuff to the staging area using git add. I have not used git commit. So it's telling me that. Changes to be committed. It tells me what new files I have in the staging area that need to be committed. It also even tells me use git rm-cache file to unstage. So it's very user friendly. It's telling you what kind of commands you can use. So let's go ahead and commit this. I'm gonna say git commits -m for the message, and I'm gonna add a message here that says this is my first commit. I press enter, and I see here, notice that it says master root commit. So I committed this in the master branch. It has some weird numbers and letters here. This is the code that belongs to this commit. So it's almost like a serial number that is representing this specific commit history. So if I wanted to go check my commit history, I would use or find this code to find the specific time that I did this commit. Next is the actual commit message. This is my first commit. It even tells me how many files changed and what changed from them. I have two insertions, right? I inserted two files. I said it says that I created two files, the README and the .js. So we added the files to the staging area. We're committing them to the box truck. The next step is to git push. Now, this is good practice right here, so I'm gonna do it anyways. So it's telling you here to do git branch dash m main. Now, I didn't mention this, but let me use git branch. On my computer, on VS Code, the branch that it creates is called master. For some reason, Git on your computer, it calls it master, but the main branch on your repositories on GitHub is called main. So what this is making you do, it's making you update the branch on your computer to be called main. Now, it's good practice to ensure that both your Git and GitHub branches are called the same, which is why it's making you do that. Right, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna say git branch dash m, and then it's main. And if I type in git branch again, notice that it's no longer called master, it's called main. So that's all it's making me do there. So it's good practice. If you have a branch that's supposed to be connected to another branch on GitHub, they should be called the same thing, both on Git and on GitHub. So be aware of that. So it made me change the name of that branch before I connected it. Notice what it's making me do here next. It's saying git remote add origin, and then there's a link to this repository. I'm gonna skip this step. Watch what happens. I'm gonna say git push, and I'm gonna get an error. It says no configured push destination. Either specify the URL from the command line or configure a remote repository using, and it tells me the following command. So why is it telling me this, guys? Well, that's because, once again, Git and GitHub are two different things, right? Git is on my computer. GitHub is on the remote repository on GitHub, right? The GitHub has its own repository local to itself. So these are two different things, but I need to connect them. Git remote add, and it says make sure you add the name and the URL. Well, it already gives it to me here. Git remote add. The name of what you're trying to connect should be called origin. This is the origin. It will be this, right? That's what I'm telling it to be. And here's the URL. So I can just go ahead and copy this for saving time. And I press enter. And what it just did, it connected them. So now I'm going to say git push up to origin main. It quite literally gives me the commands for me. I press enter, and it goes through its little sequence. It compresses the information. It sends it up. It even show you here there's a new branch, main to main, branch main set up to track origin main. So the branch main here on my local Git is set up to track origin main on GitHub. Now I come back to GitHub, and I'm going to refresh this page. Now that I refresh it, I see here that I now have both files on GitHub and the README. So I successfully connected my Git to my GitHub repository, and now they're talking. Do I have any questions on how I created a Git session, a GitHub repository, and how I connected them together?
Kind of. I mean, I guess my real question is since we were talking about Git and GitHub being different, how would you like is just loading the files and stuff in the staging area basically like the upload process for your local? Or like how would you store different versions just to your local until you're ready to ship off that final file to be pushed to GitHub? Like where would you store all of that?
Git add. That would be the
Just
stage area.
okay, so git add is basically like your local push, and then going to GitHub would be like the actual push command.
In a sense, yes.
Okay.
Um, no, actually, no. Let me rephrase that. Your commits. It's not your git add, it's your commit. Your git add being added to a staging area, it's almost like a safety check. Think about it that way. It's just an extra protective measure before you start to commit and send something up. So they add layers of protection that you have to go through, really, to before you get. It's almost like getting your leave signed in the military. You gotta get your team leader to get it approved, and your squad leader to work. But they're just adding layers to it. That's all that is. The git add, right? Before it reaches GitHub, where it's gonna be on GitHub servers. Does that make sense? Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like if you're just working on a couple different, files, exploring different avenues to fix, say, like a button or something. If I wanted to open the file locally while I'm still working on it, say like a week or a day or however long, I'd just get it from the staging area, and
and
then once I'm ready to actually push it, then I'll recommit and then or re-add and then recommit and then push, right?
your
Or
files
how?
stay there. You don't have to pull anything out of the staging area. It's there. You still have access to it, even though it's in the staging area. It's just creating snapshots of it. Look, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about this tomorrow because it is 8:58. I don't want to go over time. Today was our first day. Uh, I know we talked about a lot. We covered a lot in one day. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.